Hi guys, welcome to an Apex Racing Academy setup guide. Alex Simpson, hello. Cheesy. Here with Andrew Woodhouse. We're in the Mercedes AMG GT3. I'm going to do a little Q&A session with you, try and give you guys a little helping hand in setting up this car. We're at Road Atlanta just for this test. I'm going to start off with the baseline setup. Good afternoon, Andrew. Thank you for jumping on and being my eyes on the chat and ploughing me with all the questions that the guys are going to go through today.
Yeah, good evening, Alex. Back here again after we were here until nearly midnight last night with the final of the BSRTC. But yeah, here to see some GT3 action at Road Atlanta, and I've driven this track in this car combination, and it's quite challenging. So I'll be interested to see what you have for us tonight, mate.
So I broke the video down into a few different sections, so we're going to try and target each little area, about 20 minutes or so, so just fire your questions across and I'll try and answer as many of them as I can. This is like our basic setup guide, so I'm not going to use any tools outside of the sim to try and help build the setup here, so it's just anything and everything internally, so no Motec or VRS or iAnalyze or anything like that. It's just what's available to us in the sim. It's pretty much everything you kind of need. Those last few tenths sometimes you can get from those extra bits of software, but we cover that more inside our academy. So right, mate, so yeah, first up on the list we're going to talk about tyre pressures, I believe.
Yes, and that's one of the key things for any setup, really. It just helps with the traction, obviously, and most importantly, the tyre life. And so, Alex, what sort of taking from the baseline setup, then what's the first step you would take? You go out and drive the car first, or would you make an adjustment before you even do any laps?
It's always worth just going out and just driving some laps. I think that's the key thing, just to get yourself familiar. If you know the car well, you've probably got a baseline set up already from a previous season kind of thing. But if you're a complete newcomer to it, then you've got to just go out there and just have a little run, see what the car feels like. That's got to be step number one. In regards to tyre pressures, I'm always of the mindset that I like to have my pressures even, at least left to right, if not left to right and front to back. But that's not always an absolute critical necessity. So left and right tends to be very important, I feel, just to get the balance right of the car over a long run. And again, you can affect the balance of the car by changing the pressures front to back. So but what we'll do with the baseline set is we'll just go for a quick run. I want to do a couple of laps, and because I want to obviously show the data of obviously what's going to happen. I'm not really interested too much in these starting cold pressures. I'm more interested in the hot pressure. That's really what interests me. So yeah, I'm going to go and run a couple of laps, and then if you guys have got any questions or anything like that, or Andrew yourself, then ask me, and I'll try and give you as much information as possible while I'm driving, which is never an easy thing. Some people can talk and driving.
If I know anything of from 6 years of being teammates with you, is that talking and driving don't usually mix that well.
No.
We'll see. We'll see how we get on. But I'll just have a little talk about the track. Road Atlanta, it's one that I absolutely hated until about a few months ago. It's still not my absolute favourite, but it does have a nice rhythm. It does have some challenging corners, and few blind corners, just like downhill right-hander at the start of the S's, which make it quite tricky. The car wants to get unsettled over some of these curbs, and that's what we're going to come to obviously in our fourth part of the fourth part is how to balance up the suspension as well, which Alex, I'm guessing here it's quite critical.
It was a good track for us to choose, actually, because it does a bit of everything. It's got some high speed, some slow speed, some of the S's and all sorts. So and then of course they've got a couple of big bumps and curbs and stuff to deal with, so we can talk about the suspension there. But yeah, don't expect me to light the timing screen up here.
Well, it was quite
get that disclaimer in nice and early.
It was quite good at the start of the season, actually. I actually was down in Bedford with yourself and with Ryan, and we did a couple of races in your in your rig, and I tell you what, from someone who's on a single screen and a G27 mounted to a dining table, it was quite another world. But what it did do is allow me to really feel the car, and I guess and actually be able to understand some of these changes. So hopefully it'll make a bit more sense to me as the evening goes on, at least.
Hopefully I wasn't too sure what camera we're on there. So anything, I can't see the old X-Flip, but hopefully you've got the camera view now, so you can see a bit of everything. I'll zoom back in when we go in the garage, so that you can see all the information on the screen. I'm not going to hide any of that. But yeah, it takes a few laps. I mean, what I would start off doing is, like I say, you want to familiarise yourself. So I'm not going to do it right now, but good 10-15 minutes of running on the same set, just sort of making sure that you extract the most out of that setup before you start playing. Otherwise you just don't know whether or not you're finding anything in the set, or it's just yourself as a driver. And I have to shut Facebook off as well.
Because it is, a lot of the time it's, you think the setup's not right, and it is actually your own mistakes. And until you really dial that in and get that consistency, I think that's where yourself and some of the other pros will really have a better time of it. The ones who can really have consistent lap times, because I know for myself, my lap times aren't consistent enough to really notice the tiny setup changes. The ones that you'll be finding over a week, say in the practice for the World Championship.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. I mean, it's easy for us, even in when we're practicing for the World Championship, to grab a base and just start tinkering really too quickly before we've sort of found the limits of what we're using. So
that made Pash check his Facebook, by the way, when your thing went off.
Ah, good.
That's like when someone says "Okay, Google" on a YouTube video. It always sets somebody's phone off. The best thing.
Just want to do a couple more laps. Like I say, it's important just to do about 5, just at least to try and get a read on what the tyres are going to do as well. So we've got. I mean, how's the stream, everyone, as well? Is it looking all right? How's the volumes, all that sort of stuff? Can you hear us okay? I don't normally use this PC to stream, so it's a bit different.
Yeah, it seems okay to me. It seems quite smooth, but maybe if I'm being picky, maybe a tiny bit too much engine noise, but that's might be just my ears.
Yeah, we can turn that down the next time I come out of the car.
Not too bad though. It's not too bad. Any questions, guys? Any questions for we've got 47 people watching. Surely somebody must have a question regarding the tyre pressures, or even the start of a test and what you do in terms of preparation. Everybody's saying that everything looks good and is great on the stream as well, so that's good. It's been a while since we've done one of these setup tutorials, actually.
Yeah, we did one for the McLaren, didn't we, a while back? For iRacing that went on. Where'd that go? That was on their Twitch channel, if I remember rightly.
John Roberts is saying that that's just the Merc sounding awesome and being a beast. So maybe it is my ears then. Hello, everybody. AK Racing Point. Hello. Marcin Baron, greetings from Poland. Hello. Yannick Muehlman says, what are the ideal tyre pressures to aim for? Hot pressures, of course.
Yeah, again, it's going to vary from track to track. I mean, I have a range that I work from, which is, I would sort of say about 180 to 190, something like that. Somewhere in that range would be good. Each track is going to be different. Of course, a high-speed track, you're probably going to find that the higher the range will be better. A low-speed circuit that you need a lot of grunt coming out of corners is probably going to be slightly lower. So just sort of have a play, try and do some runs and see which one you find is is best. I think that's the key thing. But yeah, somewhere around there. I mean, if I bring it up right now, so we've got.
Being told the engine noise is fine, by the way.
Okay, cool. So it's just you then.
It's just me, mate. That's usual, isn't it? There's also the question, you might be able to cover it in the same, I don't know, in the same breath, but is it better to have the optimal tyre pressure or the optimal tyre temperature? Okay. You obviously aim for both, but
yeah. So I'm gonna. So let's just let's just talk about the tyre model for a little second, as we are right now. As we know, it's very, very sensitive to temperature. and as such, there's not a sweet spot in the temperature that I'm looking at. So I'm not really looking at the last hot temperatures or anything like that. The colder the temperature of the tyre, the quicker you're going to go. It's as simple as that right now. Even with some of the cars that feel a little bit slippy for the first lap or two while the pressures are building up to the right area, or it just seems like the tyre's a bit cold. You'll see it with the cold tracks compared to a hot track. If you look at the carcass temperature, the car will always go much quicker with the lower temperatures. So I tend not to look at them just at the moment. I know that iRacing have been on the forum and said, look, they know that it's probably a bit too sensitive right now, and in the next we get the next version of the tire model, that will be corrected. So when that be, I don't know. Let's just keep pushing them for that, is what I say. So I really focus on the hot pressure. That's the key thing. So that is my when I'm sort of working on this, it's pressures, and then cambers is kind of my number one thing.
One question which I meant to go back to is when you said about the ideal temperature, which was about 185, you said, or 180, something like that. They said, do you drive all the tracks with the same hot pressure? Is that ideal for you?
No, not really. Like I say, some of the slow speed circuits might be slightly lower in that pressure range, and some of the high speed ones might be a bit further up, a bit higher. So it's just a case of obviously you got to do a bit of experimentation and see what feels good for you, especially it's more over a long run. Of course, the race is where it counts, so it's no good going out there and just doing it over a hot lap, because most stuff's going to feel great when the tyres are absolutely brand new. So do some 10-15 lap runs, experiment with different hot pressures going through that range. It's probably going to be sort of 3 clicks on the GT3s that you can try, so it's not a huge amount of laps that you've got to do, and you'll feel the difference certainly towards the end of a run, which one's giving you the support that you want in the areas you want. And it's not going to be the same for every driver as well at certain tracks, because some people might want more support in the slower speed corners. They might be a bit more aggressive on the gas pedal than, say, your teammate, who might want 1 click extra pressure. So sometimes there's a bit of a compromise when we come into the Blancpain series with the endurance, but the sprint, obviously, you can tailor it to yourself. So yeah, have a play. It really is worth doing. Just spending the time just to do a little 10-15 lap run, I would say, and make sure that you get the pressures where you want. You'll see it if you'll have the times there laid out in front of you. There'll be, I would think, you'll see a difference in the time pretty quickly, like a 1/10 of a second here or 1/10 of a second there, as consistency or slower or something like that. So it'll be easy to spot which one's the best. And of course, it'll feel nicer to you as a driver. You'll feel like you're a bit more comfortable, like you can push a bit more. So that should be easy to spot. But yeah, there's a bit of experimenting got to be done. Right. Just while I'm up on screen as well, everyone should see it. So obviously we've done that run. What did we do? 4 laps? Wasn't much. So we've got a 187 hot pressure on the front left, on the front right a 181, a 180 on the right rear, and a 184 on the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock the front left down 1 click, which takes us down 4 kPa. So probably it's going to be a lot closer than what the difference is on the left hand side at the moment. So that's kind of like a front to back, and we've got it's also going to bring us down closer to the right hand side as well, which is 181. So I'm going to come up 1 click on the front right and 1 click on the rear right as well. And yeah, the next thing we've got to do is go out there and just do the same test again, really, and just make sure that we're a little bit closer. So
would you just do me a favour just quickly before that? Would you just be able to show everybody what the session weather is like?
It's default
weather, okay.
Default weather, 35% track usage. So
there we go. Just a couple of bits with the physical modelling of the tyre more than anything. Now, what's the optimum tread remaining from the inside to the outside? Is the optimum everything the same? I'm imagining so.
Yeah, that'll come more into the camber side of things, but
right.
I'll be honest, I focus more certainly on road in getting the inside and the middle as close to spot on as I can get it. That's kind of my thing.
Spot on as in
so I want the temperature roughly the same within a few degrees, you know, and also the wear rate as well. I think the wear rate is far more important than the temperatures, to be honest. So that gives you, the wear gives you a much better idea of where you're at, and if they start to go out a lot over a race run, yeah, that's when you're going to start to come into issues where you're losing a lot of time over a run. So if you can get them the same, then you're going to be very good. Now, in something like, not to sort of branch out here, but like in the IndyCar, when we were doing the oval racing on IndyCar, you know, you want, just because of the nature and the fact we were only doing left-hand turns, you know, we're trying to get the tyre so it's completely flat as possible, so we've got the biggest surface patches we can. So
because otherwise it will just wear the left, you know, the inside, won't it, all the time, won't it?
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
What do the tyres drop off markedly after a particular wear percentage?
Yeah, it's a good question, and to be honest, they're kind of progressive. You know, I wouldn't say that they just there's a cliff until you get down to, I think it's 30%. I think when you hit 30%, there's like, it really is like like they're falling off the cliff. So, but you do well to get them down that far, I have to say. Maybe a double stint might do it.
Well, yeah, maybe, and you might have to, though, I guess, in some cases, might you?
Yeah, I mean, it has been done. I mean, obviously, it was done this year in the Blancpain GT series. You know, some teams use that tactic to great success as well. You know, some of the cars work well at that, and some of them don't. You know, the heavier and the more beast-like they are, they tend to chew up their tyres. So this one is it's not the greatest for double stinting, but you can do it if you've got everything set up right.
How does the temperature affect the sidewall flex? Another question from Ralph Murphy.
Yeah. Now you're going onto crazy extremes. I'd have to throw that over to a physics person, to be honest. You know, like Eric would be much better posed to answer that, because obviously they know their model much better than I do. Yeah, and I think that would definitely fall under an advanced question. I'm trying to keep this.
Would that effectively mean, though, like, is that effectively like slip angle of the tyre? Is that? I'm guessing that's when the sidewall flexes. Is that what creates the slip angle, or is that just? It's complete nonsense.
Yeah, the truth is, I don't want to sit here and say something that I don't know the answer to completely. So I'm going to have to say that I need to pass that one back off to a professional that would know. That's the thing. So I don't want to say something that's not accurate as far as I'm aware of. So, and I can't give an honest answer to that one. So yeah, let's hit up Eric on the forum and ask him that question. You know, I'm sure he will happily come back and answer that. He's the man with the physics.
Excellent.
I'm not sure how many laps we've done. We'll do one more, I think, and then we'll see where we're at.
What time are you doing at the moment, just so that I know, just for my reference?
120s, high 120s.
Oh, right, okay.
Like I say, I'm not sure they're the greatest lap times. You know me, I cannot.
Is in 1 minute 20 or 1 minute 29?
1 minute 20. Point.
Oh, right. Okay. No, it's just so I know that how much you're improving the car over the session. Gives me a good benchmark there to figure that out. Yes, the Blancpain will run. Fuel load will happily run for an hour. That's true, and the tyres are usually fine. Yeah, full tank of fuel. That's right.
Yeah, no problem. To be honest, I mean, you will see a little bit of drop off. The hotter the track, the more the time will drop off. The cooler, actually, you can end up picking up time just because the car becomes a little bit lighter. So. Again, the heat has quite an effect on the wear.
But what? How's the car feeling now then with those small changes? I noticed you're up on the Delta, but what are you finding after those little tiny changes?
Yeah, I mean, it's minor at the moment. I mean, what I would expect to find, certainly some of like the long corners where I'm on a bit of power. So as we come over the crest, that left-hander there, you know, the car just will when your pressures are a little bit more evened out, is the balance just stays pretty good all the way through there. So you can just be a little bit more aggressive in pushing the car. When they fall out of sync, then that's when just things become a little bit more tricky.
Feeling more traction now, though, that you've brought those pressures more in line with what you're thinking?
Again, it's really minor, and I think right now it's just me more getting used to the car than anything. But certainly it'll be better. You know, just experience tells me that evening out the pressures is just going to give me a slightly quicker run over what they'd be if they were off. And it's more at the end of the stint where it makes the big difference. You know, once the tyres really are worn a bit, and that's where the time really comes from.
What are your thoughts on this car and track combination then? Do you like it?
I love this car, and I love this track as well. So I think this track come into favour with me with the World Cup when we did the old the rough C-spec round there a few years back. Even though the final didn't go too well.
No, I heard about that.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It really, the track sort of just gelled with me then that week. So camera's back. But yeah, and I enjoyed the car as well. There's something about the car. I mean, it's very drivable. I think that's that's quite a nice little shot. Yeah, it's very drivable. It's quite forgiving over the curbs as well. I think, you know, this is a really good car. I think if you want to get involved in the Blancpain series and haven't done anything before, just because it does allow you to obviously go over some of the curbs, the high curbs and stuff like that. You don't have to be quite so pinpoint accurate, and it'll be a very forgiving for you. I think that's the thing as well, where some of the others like the Audi is extremely fast, and obviously a lot of people are running that right now. But it's a little
harder to.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a little more temperamental, I think.
It is, and you know, like say you go somewhere like Montreal, you've got to be a little bit more accurate through the chicanes and things like that to maximise it. Where in this car, you know, you can absolutely wallop those huge sausage curbs, and while it might not be quicker, it's not going to have you in the wall straight away. So, yeah, it's a good car. So what I'm basically saying is I like it because it's easy to drive.
more of a general driving question. Where are your ABS and traction control settings?
It's whatever the default is. I have literally, it's on baseline. I haven't changed anything.
Oh, okay. You haven't adjusted that.
Yeah, so we'll put that on. So traction control is on 4, ABS is on 12. So yeah, it's absolutely baseline setup at the moment. So
there you go.
And again, that might be something that I will tweak depending on a run. So if I feel like a little bit more traction control going over a long run, and I feel like the tyres just start to spin up and things like that towards the end of the run, then you know I'll give it a bit more. But it's something you can adjust in the car, so I'm quite fluid with that. I'll change it up and down. And ABS, you know, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't run full ABS at the moment. There's no reason why you wouldn't. That's for sure at the moment.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah, it might be a little trick that I've never tried, but yeah.
Right now, is it
full.
possible for full ABS settings to sort of increase your braking distances at all, or?
I just can't see how. You know, I really can't see how.
As in a bit like having too much traction control.
Yeah, I don't think so, because you know, it's just stopping you from locking up. I mean, if you can modulate the brakes fine, you know, then you don't need it, I suppose. But I can't see how it would actually make your braking distances any longer, because it's you know, I guess it's to the point is, do you need to do it? So you probably need to adjust it so it's just about, you know, stopping the locking up. You want zero locking, so you find the setting that gives you a bit of locking, and then you go up one, so you have none. If you want to be 100% sure, but as long as you can brake the car, I mean, with the 4 ABS, you can hammer on the brakes, you know, 4 braking, and it's not gonna lock up. So just lets you be really aggressive.
What advantages does the Mercedes have when it comes to the critical points of a race?
It's a tough question at the moment. I think it's probably a good all-rounder. That's I think that's the key thing. I would say the Mercedes right now is jack of all, master of none. I think that's the way to answer that question. Is that I don't honestly think it has a single advantage right now, but it's good.
Very good at everything.
It's good at everything it does, but I wouldn't say it's the best at anything. You know, so again, it's just a very, very good all-round car, and again, another reason why I think it's a good one to jump into. If anything, I'd probably say okay, it's the best over the curbs, but some of the others like the BMW and not that I drive that too much, and the McLaren are both good over curbs as well. You know, if you set it up right, they're extremely good over the curbs too. So, you know, the Ford, let's not forget about that. I haven't drove that for a little while, so couldn't give you an honest opinion on that one. But you know, traditionally it was always really good. So, but I'd still probably say that the Merc's probably got the edge on that. So I know at like Imola, we were able to get that thing gliding over all of those high curbs and chicanes and things like that, and just didn't have a problem with it whatsoever.
And that's a tough one for curbs, isn't it? Really, Imola. I was just going to ask you how long do you want on the first part? Because we've had about, what have we had? We had about half an hour, have we already?
Yeah,
27 minutes. So
okay. Well, I think we'll probably move on, because actually what I've done is I went and did those few changes, and if you look at my last hot pressures right now, as they're on screen, if I was on the right camera,
186.
Oh no, I was right. Yeah, they're all 186. You know, and I appreciate that was only like a 4 or 5 lap run, so you need to do a longer run and make sure, because they could fall out again. Even further over a run, so
you wanting that pressure the same at the end of the run as well?
It doesn't necessarily have to be 186 all round. It just well, unless that's kind of where you want
it. You wanting it to hold? Is that better?
I want the left to right pressures the same. You know,
okay.
Like I say, I might find that actually the car gives me a little bit of balance. You know, turning into corners if the pressure was slightly low on the front end, for example. You know, so you know, at this point I could go down 1 click each on the front end, and I'm going to keep the same left to right balance pretty much intact, but the car would turn a bit better, yeah. Or I might want a bit more bite on the rear end, you know, so I'd go down on the pressures, so it's got a bit more traction coming out the slow speed, but I don't want to change the way the car rotates into the corner, so you know, I'll leave the fronts up. So you know, you can have a little play front to back, but I think the key thing is the left and right. That's kind of where you're at, and that's a prime example of, you know, of what you're looking at. But do that over a 10 lap run, that will give you a much better reading than what did I do there, 4 or 5 laps.
Okay. Brett's got a couple of questions on the chat, but I think we'll save those probably for the suspension part, because I think they're more to do with, it's about handling the curbs. So I think we'll deal with that in the suspension and the damping section, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take a quick look at. So we're going
to
to move on to.
Are you happy with that then? Would you be happy with that? As in.
Oh, that's a pretty good start for me. You know that.
Good.
Like I say, I would like to have done 10 laps. You know, we haven't got time to do that. Otherwise, we'd just be sat here watching me drive around. So.
Might help some people. I don't know.
So that would be me. I'd be like, right, okay, that's good. I'm happy with my pressures. Obviously, like I say, I would try the front and back differences and balance as well, and see which one's quicker. So, you know, you could spend an hour just getting the tyre pressures right. You know.
That was a question I saw earlier on as well. How long would it normally take you to make your setup from start to finish?
From a baseline set, probably, if I was to say, spend about an hour and a half, maybe a day, 3 days, hour and a half a day.
So what, about 5 hours, maybe, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. From absolute scratch. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would think that's right. Of course, we all have setups that we've used before that have got a lot of work done. You know, the tyre pressures are there or thereabouts, cambers are thereabouts. Yep. The balance kind of fits you as a driver, and then you're talking maybe 2. You know, just to fine tune. So.
Well, a lot of the drivers as well. I mean, some of the drivers who are watching, like I said, the idea of this, I suppose, though, isn't it, to get from start people off with the baseline and teach them the basics, and that's the great thing. Right. So are we going to go on to cambers now?
Yeah, let's switch over to
Alright.
camber. Okay,
It's always a
so
very interesting section for me because even though I understand what it should do, I never really know what the ideal setting is.
sure.
So, be good.
So obviously the baseline set, the camber 2.0 degrees on the front, 1.3, and it has a difference on the back here. Now let's sort of let's cover that right now. I'll make 100% sure of this as well. So let's save this.
And very quickly as well, is the way you've set up this agenda for the video, is that normally how you'd go through the setup process from start to finish?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I don't see any reason. I always work on race set first. Never with the queue. Yeah, the queue comes after, which is why when they give us a bit of a hard time on the stream saying that we're rubbish at qualifying. That's why, because we're good in the race. We focus on the race setup, but yeah, the queue's a bit of an afterthought, and sometimes we're still scratching around trying to make improvements. On Friday night, and it's like, oh, has anyone done any queue work yet?
Is that sometimes the fleshy bit behind the wheel though?
Yeah,
Messing up qualifying as opposed to the
quite common, that is, I have to say as well. So. Right, let me.
I tell you what, mate. If there was a perfect formula for how to nail qualifying, I'm sure it would sell very, very well.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think any of us have truly ever mastered it. So.
Yeah, we do a lot of work with Fabio Martins and DeRose method about trying to keep calm and things like that, and breathing techniques and stuff like that. And I have to say, it does help massively. I just want to get everyone doing that, and not everyone does it. So, but yeah.
What does it help you do then in that case? Sorry, I don't want to derail it too much, but
yeah,
is that more of a
just keeps the butterflies away? I don't used to have that a little bit, and like mid lap as well when you're on a good one.
Yeah,
that feeling when you're on a good one and a delta bar's there, you're like, oh yeah, and then you get all giddy. That just sort of really helps with that sort of stuff. So
a little story of my own from that is I used to. I don't think many people know this, but I used to do temping bowling for the county at junior level, and I started off with 9 strikes in a row, and of course from about 6 the butterflies just build up and build up and build up to the extent that I got to the 10th frame, pretty much just dropped the ball. and it went and I only scored 6 but that's exactly the thing, isn't it? I suppose if I'd have had that mental training back then you never know what might happen. But it's the same thing on the qualifying lap. We've all done it where we're maybe even half a second up, something like that, and we get so giddy, that you just want to break that bit later. You want to get on the gas a little bit quicker, and yeah, it's everybody's downfall, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, exactly. It does work really well. Yeah, so do speak to Fabs. He helps a lot of sim racers out. He's happy to if anyone suffers with that. Right, so I loaded the baseline back up just because when we were on our setup there was a difference in the cambers on the left and the right side of the rear. So this is back to the original baseline, and you can see they were the same. So what we changed has made a difference into the cambers. Yeah, and it will also have affected the sort of like the preload or the cross weight on the car, although you can't really see it. You can't really see it there. So, because what effectively we've done is we've changed the ride height on the right rear of the car by putting the right side of the car by putting the pressures up on the right side and dropping them down on the front left. So we've kind of jacked the right rear of the car up, dropped the front left, so we've got cross weight in there, and that affects the camber that we've got on the back. Now, what I will say is this is a garage reading, so this is when it's static in the garage. It's not moving. It's not had the tire pressures are this 165, 172, 172, 169. Yeah. So don't think right now that you've got to go and change that or that to match up here, because so like I say, that's what's in the garage. What it is on the track is when everything is at 186. Yeah, so if I just sort of quickly go right 186 with the tires all round, and go apply. You watch, it's going to keep me wrong. There we go, way back to 1.3. Yeah.
Fail the tech.
Yeah, exactly. So that'd maybe look a fool, wouldn't it? So yeah, so the cambers even themselves back out. So you got to think what you see in the garage isn't necessarily what you're driving with out there as well. So don't go changing it thinking, oh, it's all wrong, the crossweight's all wrong and stuff like that. That's the crossweight that's in the garage, not what you're going to be going out there. So this is why you might see people with asymmetric setups in the garage, because actually they're symmetrical when they get out on track.
Yeah.
And that's another.
Is that more of something that you've just got to learn by driving the car?
No, not really. That's just
as in whether to have an asymmetric setup or not.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, apart from maybe Lime Rock Park, I think that's probably the only track you might want an asymmetrical set. You know, there's probably not one that's worth
right-hander on
worth
that,
doing. You know, yeah, exactly. So, and even that's a bit touch and go, to be honest. So I've done a few, tried a few asymmetrical stuff around there, and it's not really anything. So, yeah, so don't. It's easy to come back and change and go, oh look, that's wrong, and and you just sit there and you try and make that 1.3, and that. So now what I will say is that cambers are pretty good in the baseline set, because we can see like our last sort of hot temps, and more importantly our wear rates have come down. Now of course we literally did 4 laps, so you're not going to get a true accurate reading. This is where doing the 10 lap run, we will instantly have a figure after working on the pressures that we can then go and adjust our cambers with.
Yep.
So if we had, let's say for an example, we'd had on this left front here 97 and 98, or let's go a bit lower and say 87 90 for example, then I would probably say the camber is a little bit high on the front left. Now again, I would like to say what I've just said about asymmetrical and things like that, I still think you want to go down even on the front. I just think the car works better. Like you really start to play more with crossweight and things like that, where if you start to have the cambers different on the front to the left, then it's really hard to get the balance right. So just try and come down.
It's more of an oval.
Yeah, definitely.
More of a requirement of the oval racing.
Yeah, definitely.
Really.
So come down, and I would just try and get somewhere in between the fronts. Sort of get them in between, So if you have the middle is wearing more on the right hand side, again that can happen depending on the differences in the track, because you just want to try and get the best balance between them. So try and get these wear rates matching for the longest run, get them as close together as possible. There's no real need to go out on track and show you this. We've already done some laps. So as for where the cambers are going to need to be, of course the more camber you have, that's going to affect how the car turns into the corner. So at the front, that's going to obviously when the car sort of leans in, I don't know if you can see it on the little picture, but obviously if you go through a left hand turn, the car sort of rocks onto the side and squats down on the right hand side, and when we have say the camber, let's do it like that. With the camera, it's probably best if I do that camera. Is that the best one? Yeah. So where are we? Like that. So I think that's probably a bit exaggerated. That's clearly not 2 degrees worth of camber there. But so when we go through a left-hander, the car sort of rocks, so the tyre straightens up. So that's why we have camber at all, and it's not set at 0, because the more load we put on, it straightens it up. And now what we have to do is we just have to get the best camber, so that all on the on the left hand turns, the car, or the right hand turns, is getting to the largest contact patch. So the car, basically the tyres straighten up, so the largest possible contact patch onto the ground, and also for the wear rate. So of course, if we have a bigger surface area touching the tarmac, then what we end up having is obviously more grip. Better lap times. So, and it's the same thing with the rear of the car as well.
Yep.
With it on 1.4, again it will rock, on the back, and it will straighten that wheel up so that you've got a large surface patch on there and give you more grip. Now, you might need to change it for different areas. Like you might want the rears to support you more going, say, through the exit of the corner, as opposed to, you know, the fronts that need to support you going in and through the middle of the corner. And that's kind of why we tend to have different cambers front to back. So, you know, the higher the camber, because obviously we want that surface contact patch to be as large as possible going into the corner and in the middle, so that stands up straight going through it. But coming out of the corner, it's more the G-force is starting to come off of the car a little bit, so the car will get back to its natural position, which will mean that you won't have to have quite so much corner, so that camber in there. Sorry, so that's why we have a lower camber on the rears. And again, the way that you set the cambers up, like I say, the best way to really find out is to look at the wear rates over a long run, and that will tell you when you're close to getting them spot on. If you can get these percentages bang on, then you're in the right range for your camber. You won't get them perfect. You know, it's very, very difficult to get them absolutely perfect. Not without doing an insane amount of laps. So, but as close as you can get, then you're on the right track. Now, of course, if you want a bit more support, if the car feels a bit twitchy coming off of the corner, what you need to do is you need to look at those. You need to look at the wear rates to give you an idea of what you need to do with the cambers. Because if they are off at the moment and you have more to the middle of the tyre, for example, then what's happening is the car's coming up too much. Yeah, so that tyre's straightening up. So you're wearing out the middle of the tyre, and then what you'll need to do is you'll just need to give yourself a bit more extra camber. So if the inside edge is the one that's wearing out too much, it means that it's constantly on the edge of the tyre. Yeah, so you can afford to straighten it up a little bit yourself in the garage so that you increase the surface patch that way. So that should, when the car's twitchy on the rear and you've got an imbalance in the wear rates, that should give you a good idea of where you need to go, just to give as much support from the tyre as you can. Of course, there are other things in the setup that we'll come to in a bit that will also help with that: suspension, dampers, ARB, all sorts of stuff. So, wing, you know.
Yeah. Just quickly, when it comes to the cambers, is there any real issue with elevation change from circuit to circuit? So, would say Nürburgring have one setup, and maybe this would have a different one, just based on the fact that one's hillier than another?
No, I don't think so. I certainly wouldn't go changing it just because it's got the elevation change. I would go about setting up the same way. I mean, again, with these cars, once you get them close to your range, they don't change a great deal from track to track. They're very close. So you're only talking maybe 1 or 2 clicks is all you're really going to be doing. You'll get a comfortable set, and you'll be like, right, yeah, that's spot on for me. And then you'll do a little change for track to track. But no, I wouldn't say the hills are gonna have any impact on it. You know, that's gonna more be down to, you know, for example, if I think Mid-Ohio is probably a really good example of a track that you might adjust the setup, because there's like a couple of places that, you know, you go over the crest in massive acceleration zones, and the track drops away from you, so the car's going to get a bit light if you haven't set it up. So that's something you would change for there. Here's not too bad, to be honest. There's maybe the final turn, if you go away, that track drops away, but I wouldn't be changing cambers for it. That would be probably dampers, actually, is I would look at to do that, just so that when the track drops away, the tyre drops with it. So, but we'll cover that in when we get to dampers. As for range, for anybody, you know, we haven't really spoke about a range to try. I think I've had the fronts down at like 1.6 and up to like 2.4, and, you know, playing around with different setups, you know. And again, you've just got to work with, you know, what feels better based on your long run wear rates and things like that. Every track is going to be slightly different. And on the back, you know, I've had it into the point somethings, and probably up as high as 1.8, I think, as well. So again, it can vary quite a bit. But you'll know, obviously every driver is going to be different, remember, as well, you
Yeah.
know, so you're going to lean the car in different areas than what I do,
Mm.
you know, and you might need a bit of extra support elsewhere. You know, the rest of the setup might mean that you put in a bit of extra G into the car in certain places that's going to cause a bit of extra wear, so you need to adjust it. So like I say, just keep looking at that long run data just to work out the ideal cambers.
All right.
Any other questions on cambers?
Not really, no. Doesn't appear so. I think we should move on to aerodynamics, which is a massive part, of course, of any race car. But you know, it's still important in these GT3s, isn't it?
Yeah, huge. Still on these as well. I mean, you could, you can bang on maximum wing here and feel nice and stable and comfy in the car, and you just get absolutely smoked down the straight. So they have a big effect in these. So you've got to balance it based on your requirements for straight line speed, and this is a good circuit for this as well, because we've got that turn one, and then all through sort of the S's section really it's going to require as much downforce as you can get it. You know, the BMW is going to come into its realm here. You know, that all that extra downforce that it has, it's going to love it through here. And but yeah, down that back straight, it's a completely different kettle of fish. It's like slow coach, isn't it? So it's very difficult to overtake anyone. But then, so you've kind of got to balance your car out. So those guys, they might need to go, well, okay, we'll have to sacrifice a bit of downforce through the S's, even though we're going to be so fast through there, just so that actually when we want to try and pull off an overtake, we're not being left behind. So you've got to work on that quite a bit. I mean, at the moment, the Mercedes here is set at a 6. Now, there's a couple of things obviously we can do with aerodynamics. There's two things that really we need to consider. So you got the rear wing, of course, which is obviously pushing the car down on the back, and you're still going to get a you can't actually see it. They don't have an aero calculator on these cars, which is a bit of a shame, because that would have been useful to have showed you. So you're still going to have like a downforce percentage on the car, and of course the more rear wing you whack on it, basically what you're doing is you're shifting the balance further back of the car. So more wing basically means more understeer or more support on the rear end of the car. And that's not the only way we can, of course, affect the aero balance as well. So we can also affect it with the ride heights too. So because obviously the car will sit at a certain point. We'll have a look, it's 82 mil at the front and 90 at the back at the minute. So the car is actually sort of, okay, it's not this extreme, but yeah, it's like a dragster. But again, I need to make sure I'm on the right camera. Yeah, so think of we talk about rake. This is basically what it is. So it's rake, and a perfect example of extreme rake is the Red Bull F1 car, things like that, isn't it? It is like a dragster. Yeah, so they're affecting their aero balance like that as well. So they're giving themselves a lot of front sort of downforce, a lot of turn. And it's the same with the GT3s. The more you jack the car up at the back, the more it's going to affect the aero balance. So it becomes, the car will turn quicker with the back end poked up, because the air actually just hits the front of the car. It pushes the bonnet down, so obviously pushes the front tyres into the ground as well. So that's how you get an increased turn with the car jacked up at the back. And with obviously the rear wing poked up as well, then that you would obviously compensate that. So there's two things we've got to consider with Road Atlanta, for example, is that the car is as aerodynamically efficient, slippy, when the car is absolutely even front to back. There's no difference in the ride heights, and then obviously on zero wing, effectively, so that thing is perfectly flat as well at the back. That's an angle.
They just sort of were saying that effectively sticking its bum up in the air, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You're just going to create loads of drag like this as well, So that's why you might want to get turn in the car by pumping up the rake. Now, obviously, when the car's got a lot of rake and you've got a high wing, now you've got a lot of downforce. Now, a track where you're going to want a lot of rake and you're going to want a lot of wing, is somewhere where really you're not worried about straight line speed. So my thoughts on that one, probably maybe like Donington National, the little sprint one, you know, with the where you take the chicane and that goes to the start finish line. There's barely anywhere to get up to any speed there. Alton Park, maybe another one. Just I'm thinking short tracks, you know, Motegi, quite short, not very long.
Ish, yeah.
Oran Park, you know.
Oh.
Probably mid Ohio to a degree as well, but that's quite short too. But still, you know, you've got a couple of straights there. That's probably I can't think of any others, but you get the general idea.
Donington National potentially.
Yeah, that was the first one.
I suppose there's still some straights, aren't there? Though.
Yeah,
I suppose there's four quite long straights.
But that would still, because you don't have very long to get by. The tracks basically they're notoriously difficult to get by because you don't get much of a slipstream. So now tracks where you want to obviously the car to be as slippy as possible, you know, so the ride heights are equal, and they're going to be circuits like Le Mans, you know, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, you want that car to be shaped like a bullet there, you know, so there's zero drag as possible.
Silverstone similar,
not so much.
Sorry,
you know, Silverstone's a bit of a funny one. I mean, it is a fast track, but of course you've got a lot of high speed stuff in there as well. So you do have quite a bit of downforce there. And actually, like Hangar Straight is not as long as you think it is.
Because you're entering it so quickly. I think that's the thing with Hangar Straight.
Yeah, exactly.
You're already doing 130 miles an hour before you even get onto the straight.
Yep. Yeah. Monza, Spa, Watkins Glen, here. Road America, you know, there's quite a few actually that you're going to want to get that rake down.
Mosport?
Mosport a little bit, I would think. It's a high speed sort of circuit, so a lot of downforce does come into play there, you know, through like turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, and then you go into Moss Corner really, don't you? So but then in the final 2 corners as well, that's quite a high speed, a lot of downforce required as well. So that might be a bit of a compromise one, you know, where you have a bit of rake in there, but not quite so much brake. Kota as well. Again, fairly high speed, and you can afford to take the wing off, so you can slip through the S's quite quickly. I hope you all like my hand gestures. I'm hiding away the camera.
Just see a hand just going. It's like a sock puppet just going coming in from the side. There's a question from the chat. Yampru, more rake, does that equal a lighter rear?
Yeah, will do. What you're doing is you're putting more downforce onto the front of the car, so in turn the rear is gonna be a bit lighter. Of course, you're gonna have more drag as well, but the car will turn more. So it's not so much that it's going to be lighter rear. It's more that you're going to have more grip on the front end of the car, so the balance will shift towards the front rather than the balance sort of staying on the rear that way. So you can obviously compensate for that if you want, like I say, with the wing adjustment. So for here, for example, I mean the default set's not got like a huge amount of rake on it, fairly sort of common. What I would suggest we do right now is we take a bit of wing off it. So tell you what I'll do is I'll knock it down quite a bit. We'll go to let's go to 1. And what we're expect to see here is obviously I would think that I probably wouldn't have the support that I had going through the S's and turn 1. Now, of course, that it might be a case of I just didn't have the right front to back balance, so it might be a little bit better. But I would think I'm probably not going to be as quick going through the S's and that first sector as I was. But of course I'm going to be a lot quicker down the back straight, and this is why you have to sort of play with the aero to get like to compromise what you have. You know, some people again might want more support through this section of the track, and others might want more support or don't need the support here, so they can go for a high speed setup, which obviously enables them to be quick down the straight. They can get past people easier in the race. So again, it's all got to be about how you want the car to personally handle. You know, and I can already tell just going through that right-hander back there, that the rear end's already a bit more lively.
Already twitching around. As long as the driver's rear end isn't twitching around, I mean that's usually okay. When it comes to aerodynamics, how does the Mercedes fare in terms of running solo at a good rate of speed compared to when it's in the draft? How does the wing setup matter when it comes to the draft and a solo run? Because I imagine you'd need a little bit more wing if you're planning to run in the pack.
When you I mean, it's very similar to like any sort of open wheel car. When you're in the pack, oh yeah, it's pushing out wide through there now compared to what it was.
Was that the last corner by any chance?
Oh no, that was turn one. Sorry.
Oh, turn one. Oh, right, that's how far behind I am. Okay. Yeah, no, those are the two corners though where you're going to feel it. Really, yeah? It's the last corner in turn one, especially at the high speed. Oh yeah, I saw that. It just pushed right in the middle of the corner, didn't it? And wasn't too bad, was it? But it was enough to get your attention.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, and like everything, it's quite. I mean, from 6 to 1 is quite a change, so it's going to handle quite a bit differently. But so what we should expect to see now, obviously, for the first lap, probably not so much. It takes a lap and a half, doesn't it, for the engines to sort of warm through? But you'll see quite a difference in the straight line speed. I mean, we had a rubbish exit there, and we're still going to sort of kill the optimal fairly easily.
Is that quite a good indicator of for you already then of what you need to do moving forward, or are you going to wait and see what it's like on that long run?
Yeah, again,
a longer run.
A longer run, yeah, like a 10-lap run. You're going to feel what it's different, because it's always what the car does, in the long run that makes the difference. The first lap is never really a good judge. Tyres are perfect, temperatures are really low.
Is there a noticeable braking distance difference with this wing setting already?
Not yet. I mean, what I will say is right now I'm on medium brakes, and I personally run high in the GT3, so it all feels a bit weird. But I have my brake is like rock hard.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Those that don't know, I mean, I do race in.
Your brake pedal is.
Well, don't you?
It's like trying to push an elephant made out of granite.
But I race in like racing boots, so it just doesn't feel too bad for me.
It takes a bit of getting used to, but I must admit, when I'd run on that for quite a few hours, it was a lot better, and you could be a lot more precise. You just have to get used to. It's just very difficult to get used to that because it's not instinctive. But once that's that pedal. It's a club sport pedal, is it? Or really that one?
They're only CSR Elites, but they're just set on their stiffest settings. So I mean, we went quicker, so it should be a fair indication that actually this is a better balance.
Did you drive the lap quite well that time then?
No, not really.
No, it's still a better balance, so that's always good. It's always nice to get a good lap time when you've driven a bit of a scruffy lap. But it's frustrating because then the next few laps when you try to go faster and you can't, even though you drove the last lap like crap essentially. But you went a little bit quicker. So what sort of lap time did we get?
0.4 that one. So, but it still feels a bit twitchy. So maybe like one click back the other way would probably be the ideal aero setting, I would say for now.
Right. Okay.
Or I can go down.
Have you just changed the rear wing there?
Just change the rear wing. I mean, what I could do is go down a millimetre, say, on the rear end. Yeah, right. That will give me less rake, which will mean less turn in, and it will also make the car faster in a straight line. Yeah,
so now you killed two birds with one stone.
Exactly.
In theory, you should take away the instability and give yourself a bit more top speed.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Good. But no, I can see just as you're going around, like I say, I'm a few corners behind, but it does seem like you're starting to extract a bit more performance now.
Yeah, I mean, look at that through the final corner as well. It's definitely a bit more lively. We went quicker again, but that's going to feel a little bit on the edge over a full run. If it's lap 2 or lap 4 as it was, and we're already getting a little twitchy. So
160 kilometers an hour as well.
I mean, tyres still
first
good.
part it was quite bad, and then the second part, sorry, was yeah, that woke you up a little bit as well, didn't it?
Absolutely. So yeah, let's just.
You happy with that though so far?
Yeah, I mean, I would. Let's just try, for example, let's just try knocking the rear down a little bit while we're here, just to sort of finish off the aero thing. Now, we've obviously got a difference in ride height because the tyre pressures are different as well. So I'm just gonna do. Oh, yeah, I go the wrong way. Typical. So I was gonna do a shift click, but that might be a bit crazy. No, I've done a shift click on each side. So anyone who doesn't know, a shift click means 5 clicks in one go, and that has affected the cambers slightly. So we've gone up 1 degree on the camber. So I want to bring them back down, and they're actually even now as well. So I won't worry about the ride height for a minute. Let's put the ride height back up a fraction by lowering the camber. But it's they're obviously so close that once I've affected the ride height, they've evened them up. So that's again, it's just weird how the settings go. So. Oh, and I failed where? Oh, I've gone too low on the front.
In case anybody's just is late to the party, Andrew Woodhouse, Alex Simpson with you, Apex Racing TV, Apex Racing Academy, and it's a Q&A setup tutorial for the Mercedes AMG, where Alex Simpson, World Championship driver in the iRacing World Championship Series and the Blancpain Endurance Series. So there's something tickled you there, mate?
Yeah, the noob moment. I'm there going like, come on, get this fast tech, and I'm going the wrong way. I'm like, why is this not fast tech?
Yeah.
So
and as you can see, perfectly in tune with the things he's teaching everyone about today. He was teaching us how to get the best out of the Mercedes AMG around the Road Atlanta circuit in the United States.
Yeah, I realise
Alex,
probably
is it possible that I don't know if you understand the. I'm not even sure I understand the question. I might be just being stupid. Could you set the middle screen to full? Oh, as in to just bring it up on the screen.
Yeah, yes. Sorry, I'll tell you what. I'll go back to the garage because I forgot to do that, didn't I? When I was showing you what was on that. There we go. That should be it.
It's not just me misunderstanding questions, and that's good.
Yeah, no.
I'm tired. I must admit, I've had this week. This week's been quite. It's been quite a busy old week, and yeah, I think last night's BSRTC going nearly 4 hours.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Definitely, because we had all manner of things. We had a finish of 6/1000ths of a second. We had 2 new champions crowned. We had an aborted race 4. Pretty much had everything, didn't we, mate? And
yeah.
it was great though, wasn't it?
Good meeting. Good close to the season actually. Right. Sorry for that. Yeah. So let me just recap what I did. So I've gone a shift click down on the rear end. So that brought what was the ride height was about 90 millimeters. So I brought it down about 3, give or take. And when I changed that, the cambers went to 1.4 because it was already 1.4 on the rear right, and then it was 1.3 on the rear left. But actually, it brought them both to 1.4. So I've readjusted the cambers down 1 click each. Remember, I'm changing them both the same, even though they were they said they were even in the garage. We know that they were correct when the car was going round. And in turn, that made the front ride height too low as well, just because I lowered the back, so it failed tech. So I had to put the front of the car back up to get the car to pass tech again. So what we've done is, like I say, we've dropped the rear end. So that should take like a finite amount of sort of the imbalance off the car. Now this might not be enough, because I mean we did go a bit crazy with the wing, straight down to 1. It might have been better off with like a 3 or something like that. But this is kind of how you play with the aero. So, but yeah, I do quite like.
You can't go too far the other way as well.
Yeah, exactly. I do like the idea of trying to fix it and make it go faster in a straight line at the same time. It seems like a good idea.
Yeah, it might have. Because it might be faster than what you had previously, but it might not be fastest.
Exactly.
But definitely that's what you're at.
The aero combination. I mean, the GTs are not too bad, but should I go back to the other camera? Like the aero cars, like the IndyCar and the Williams and things like that, you can just be messing around with it for so long. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
The different things. And the IndyCar at Indy You know, that is the worst car for aerodynamic adjustments that you can make. My God, that thing is insane. So, a lot of fun, Indy, and prepping for Indy's a lot of fun as well. But yeah, it's a bit nuts.
Yeah, and yeah, we're about 6 months away from sort of when all that'll start again as well. Indy 500 time. Winter time though, it's like when those racing drivers, we normally hibernate, but thanks to iRacing, you know, we're up and running all the way through the cold times as well. Somebody's asked, are you using 120 litres?
Full tank, yeah. I'll double check it because it is the default set, but I'm pretty sure the default set is 120.
How do you deal with the How do you deal with the aerodynamics if, say, for example, you're very the question from Brett, if you're quite loose in one section of the track and if you're quite tight in another section?
Yeah.
Is it just a case of, because you do have to tweak for particular corners in some
That's
cases?
the thing. I mean, this is where it all does become a compromise, because you're never going to get the perfect downforce level like here, so that you're as fast as you can possibly be in the straight line. Because obviously we'd take all the rake and all of the wing off it down that straight. So there's always a bit of compromise, and it really comes down to driver preference. Like, you know, where you think you need the more support. You know, so if you think, right, I can do the stint and it's never going to be out of control for me at all. With this sort of downforce percentage, then I'll go, you know, and you're happy to go with that, then that's what I would suggest, you know, go with. But if it's just too much on the edge for you later on in the run, then I would suggest that you know, you just give it a bit of extra support.
I know you prefer a car with quite a bit of oversteer anyway, don't you?
No, it's the other way around. Yeah, I'm not one for an oversteery car, I have to say. You know, I do want, especially not at the end of a run.
Sorry, that might be compared to me. Sorry, that might be compared to me, but not compared to some people. I've seen.
Don't say my teammates that. They'll be like, well, they'll be on that chat laughing at you right now, and like, Alex, oversteering. Yeah, Paul, the other one. So.
Maybe it's just me that you know. I just run out of talent on a regular basis, mate. So it could be just anything, couldn't it? I know I always used to prefer a lot of understeer, and then realised that it doesn't really suit my driving style. But I suppose I drive the Kia now, so I have to live with it. I live with quite a lot of understeer. Let's have a little look then.
It's better through there now, and I just went optimal through there. So
essentially, to clarify it then about the different sections of the track, it's down to driver process and driver preference instead.
Really? Yeah.
And I suppose driver skill and driver style, because
I mean there is other things you can do. I mean, you know, it might come down that it's more of a mechanical issue, you know, that you can resolve. So you know, we can look at it not necessarily just in aero. It could be, you know, mechanics. We could sort of go, well, we could do some adjustments to the dampers here to help it. That probably won't make such a difference in the, you know, the high speed stuff. So
because even though obviously you're a hell of a lot better than me, you know, I sometimes will still carry more speed into a corner, but you'll always manage to get it straightened up quicker and nail the exits, and I think that's where we differ. So obviously our aero preferences are going to be dependent on how we tackle these particular corners, isn't it? Because you're going to may need less aero on the way in, but you may need more on the way out, if that makes sense.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't think there's any more questions at the minute anyway, but what are you finding with this setup then?
Yeah, that's just a little bit nicer through that last corner now, so we improved again, so it just took the edge off of it.
Pretty much just as fast too.
I'm not sure I would say it's the right balance yet by any means. So yeah, just wanted to quantify the point about obviously the aero settings and the mechanical stuff as well. So just because, you know, once you've tweaked your aero and you think, right, that feels like the best aero package now, because obviously I'm working on aero right now, doing adjustments to the car.
Yeah.
we're obviously going to go and start to tweak the suspension in a bit. It might be that we get more support. We make the car a bit more understeery with the mechanics of the car, which allows us to take an extra click of the rear wing off, or to raise the rear end up and give us a bit more rake. It might be that we bottom out, for example, so we need to have the car a bit higher, so you have to compromise the setup to work with the extra rake, that's in the car. So you can't always go lower, it's not always going to work like that. So that's just something else that you can do. So just because, like, right now is that I could have left that wing setting alone. It was like, well, it's quicker, it felt good, and then gone and tried to fix it mechanically to assist. But yeah, my opinion is to always do, as you're going with the set, you get everything working right in each section first, and then you move on. And if it needs adjustments, like, because the tyre pressures might need adjusting now that I've changed the aero balance, because the balance of the car is not the same as it was front to back, it might affect how the tyres get loaded up. So we might have a difference. I mean, it hasn't. They're still absolutely bang on right now. It might have a difference on how the tyres sort of load up, so that affects the pressure. More heat, more pressure.
And some people are saying you need to readjust your rear toe in. Apparently, change it, and is it wrong or something?
Yeah,
that's what a few people have said. It's minus 0.7. Is that right? Is that supposed to be right?
You can get it close to 0. Is usually where I end with. Let me just what was the baseline? Yeah, it was 0.02 as the baseline. So it obviously just tweaked out a little bit. So close to 0 is what I tend to always run anyway. So again, the toe in is kind of like, when we get to the suspension, toe in is like an area of the car that you can add a bit of support. Negative will allow the car to be a bit freer going into the turn, where positive will just sort of tighten it up a fraction. So you can use that as a fine-tune adjustment as well. Worth pointing out as well that the more positive toe in that you have on the back, the slower the car will actually be in a straight line as well. So, which is why people tend to lean towards getting it at 0. We don't really want a negative toe in if we can help it, but so yeah, everyone seems to run around 0. It just seems to be kind of like the go-to thing. Right, is everybody understanding everything with the aero? Are we okay to move on that front as well? Although I did want to say on the aero front, when I was talking about the rake again, and I'll leave it on this camera again and change it back in a moment. When I was talking about the rake earlier on, I was talking about the car being flat. We're talking about ride. The car, obviously in the garage at the moment, has a little bit of rake on it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what it's doing on the track as well. So that's where Motec comes in handy, or some other telemetry software. Others are available. And look at the ride height at speeds, because obviously when the wind is coming across the car, it has an effect on how the ride height is as well. So it's not going to push the car down evenly. It could be at the front, so the front end dips down more. So you might end up still, this setting might still be a fair chunk of rake on it when you actually look at Motec. So do keep looking at that, because you might think, well, this is really close, or we could go up on the front end to try and get the front, and we say, well, these are exactly 86.7 all round. I know the car's flat, but actually when you look at it in Motec, it might be like this, or it might still be like this. That's the key thing. So do one use for Motec on that front, especially with the high speed circuits. It really helps you get that car, like I say, shaped like a bullet.
I think we're okay, Matt. I don't think nobody has anything else. I think it's probably on to suspension then.
Okay. Well, following off where we started then with the almost with how the suspension can obviously affect the ride height as well. The obviously stiffer set of pedals, as I've just pedals, springs, will affect the ride height as well. So even in the garage, like when you change it from, let me switch over to this one. When you change it from say set 3 to set 1, you see an instant change in. It does do it on both. You see an instant change on the ride height as well. So with a stiffer rear end, obviously it's poked the rear end of the car up again. So that affects the rake, and that will also affect your ride height at speed. So do pay attention to that. If you would, for example, what I would suggest we do, like if you say, well, let's just try, I want a slightly stiffer rear end. Why would you want a slightly stiffer rear end? It could be that it's bottoming out. You just want to stop it from doing that, or you just want a little bit, maybe a bit of extra rotation through the corner. A stiffer rear end will do that. That's of course going to, like I said, it's going to affect the ride height at speed as different. So it's not just a case of going, right, okay, let's try a stiffer rear end and get this car turning a little bit more. It's there's so much more involved in that as well. So instantaneously, like I say, from set 3 to set 1, we've gone from 86.7 on the ride height in the garage to 89.2. So as a minimum, let's at least get back down to where we are before we go and do a test.
Right.
So 86.5, so a little bit lower than what we were, but you can't always get it absolutely precisely accurate. Now, I'm going to take it for a run in a second, and we'll just do it. We'll just feel like that, because this will help in some of the sort of the change of direction corners and the longer corners and things like that, but it might not help in some of the slower stuff with the traction. So it could be good through, I'm expecting it to be good through the S's, but it might be too much for the rear wing that we've now got. So again, this is how you can fine tune. So it might have been that, well, we'll go with 2 on the wing settings, but we still want a tiny little bit more turn when we can do it with the suspensions. This is how you can go and tweak, fine tune your aero balance even further. So, but what I would suggest doing with this as well is, yes, we've reset the ride heights, but if you are running Motec, then just check your ride heights at speed, see if they're any different. If it's, you could see what a couple of millimeters did earlier on to just making like that downhill last turn, the right hander, feel that much better. Then you can imagine a couple of millimeters, just because the car's not squatting quite as much because of the springs, is going to have exactly the same effect. It's going to make the car turn more. So you might go out and run it even with the same ride heights here and think, oh, this is terrible, I've got the same problems I had before and now it's even worse. Well, it could be a combination of the ride height at speed now has changed a bit. So do go and check that, try and get the rear ride height at speeds the same, and then start to feel your difference in your balance. So I will just I know for a fact it's going to be higher, so let's go down a couple more clicks. Well, we can only go 1 click because we're at the bottom. Check the what the toe-in does. It's still as close to 0 as we're going to get, and we'll just go for a run. Obviously, when you're running this close to the ground anyway, there's not an awful lot you can do. But if you had a slightly higher set, well, of course we dropped the rake significantly, so that's just why we're so close.
Yeah.
In the rake. Sorry, I'm trying to keep track of what camera I'm in, doing a rubbish job. He's around!
What did you do? If you cough.
Oh, damn traction control when you don't want it.
Is that failing to do a spin turn, is it?
Yeah.
Have a look.
So yeah, everyone just leaves the channel, don't they? They're like, right, this guy's
gone.
new.
No, I haven't seen it yet. Was it at the top of the hill by any chance? Yes.
Yeah.
No, he's trying to spin turn, and yeah, well,
Fail.
Everybody does it. That's the thing. That's the beautiful thing. A little wave to the camera as well, very good. Stop it. Leave me alone, I know what I'm doing. So what are you expecting to see here then?
So yeah, so I'm
you've cooked your tyres.
yeah, exactly. Now I've cooked the tyres a bit. I'm expecting sort of the S's to be a bit better. Should change of direction. Should be quicker through there.
Okay.
Coming off the corner, it should feel a little bit nicer. It should come off the corner a bit better. I didn't really have any oversteer. It doesn't like that bump very much, so you know that would kind of bring me to the thoughts of, oh, maybe I need to adjust the damping now that we've stiffened it up. Because it didn't like the curb either. So that's the trouble, when you do changes with the suspension, very quickly things can change, really, like massively. And you can go down a bit of a rabbit hole chasing it, just to think, you know, you can go, oh, I've got a couple of new optimals in this sector, but this felt worse and this felt worse, and you can go and fix them with elsewhere. But yeah, you can end up chasing a setup that you change probably another 20 things on it, and you end up, you know, gaining half a tenth. You can try something else, and actually it'll give you a better balance.
Just like you're driving, though, you don't want to go chasing the time in your own driving a lot of the time either. That'll come to you, won't it?
Yeah, exactly. See where it goes, where it's gone green. And that's exactly where I'd expect to get a bit more support, because just rotating a bit more coming off the corner.
Yeah, the answer to the question, it'll definitely be uploaded on this YouTube channel. As soon as it's finished, it'll start encoding. If you want the full resolution, then just wait a little bit. It's usually about an hour or two, isn't it, Alex? And then it's
Yeah, I think it takes about an hour.
Then it's ready to go in 720. In 720 or in 1080?
Yeah, I think it's only 720 tonight. So quicker through the S's definitely, but coming out onto that back straight where you need a lot of bite, you know, I haven't got it there. It was the old traction control. Oh, well deep, can't talk and drive. Kicked in big time, so give it a few more laps though.
Track changing much at all? Or I suppose it won't with one car running around.
Nah, just really. Me running around on the default now. Definitely rotating in a lot nicer than it was. I'm not sure it's necessarily better, but yeah, it's getting into the corner a bit better.
And you're still doing about 260 kilometers an hour at the end of the straight as well, which is, what's that in old money, about 180 miles an hour? 175?
I'm terrible for the conversions, sorry.
Doing a bit nicer on corner entry. Then yeah, Dave was saying that he prefers the softer front springs because it helps with his trail braking. Do you find the same thing, or?
I have to say my go-to set for this car is soft on the back, stiff on the front.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's just something that
make it more pointy.
Yeah, exactly. I want the car to get in, but I also want the support coming out of the corner as well. You know, so that's kind of like where I will get the where I want. This is just me as a personally. I just want the support coming out of the corners.
Will you then add more rear anti-roll bar then to compensate for being a bit soft on the rear, or?
Actually, I do.
So that proves that years of you telling me things have not gone completely unnoticed.
Yeah, I mean the bar will still obviously take a bit of traction off of it, but they're not.
Yeah.
It's not so bad in these cars. But yeah, I've been the same for a while. Like even like in the Indy car, I'm exactly the same. The rear bars up nice and high, and suspension's soft at the back.
Again, it's a lot of
the
it is personal, isn't it? Really?
yeah, and the F1's the same, but personally, I don't have the bar up that high on the F1 car. So. Now I'm guessing right now, because I'm going quicker, even with the stiffer springs, that the ride height at speed hasn't changed that much, and I might have actually gone a bit too far with the down clicks.
In terms of what? In terms of the damp?
Remember, I dropped it a bit lower as well.
Oh, right, yeah.
But unfortunately, we haven't got Motec running to know. So right, can we do one more? Just to see.
Far away. I think
well,
slightly
helps
ahead
if
of
I
time,
change
I
down.
think.
Yeah, helps if I change down. There.
It does.
They say you cut the course. You'll
So
have to
much for
slow
that
down
extra
and give
lap,
up the
right.
time gained.
What? Actually, this takes me to a good point. Again, there are many software out there available that will do this. That will archive your setups as you are working on them, because it's so easy to get lost with the changes that you've done. So I'm personally using iSpeed right here, and that's kind of like my go-to software for archiving my setups. I do use other softwares that can do it, but I just turn them off on those ones. So
We got the full screen again.
here we go. So
Done.
yeah, so I'm just literally going into my my setup archive. So yeah, Road Atlanta, just because it was obviously not the right direction at all. Now I could go and try further changes and things like that, but it felt so wrong for me that I know that I'm kind of wasting my time. It was a failed effort. I can get rotation elsewhere.
Oh, so you've got it saving your setups as you go.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's too easy not to do that. Do changes to a set,
How
and then
how do you do that? I must be being really stupid, because I don't even know how to do that.
I don't know if I can show you.
Is it through iSpeed?
Yeah, it's just on iSpeed.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
okay.
it's just on iSpeed. Yeah, it just
Oh,
archives.
sorry, and it archives the lap. Yeah, of course it does.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm being stupid.
So,
You can't drive, I can't think.
no,
Great,
that's it.
perfect.
Okay, so
I saw how you still got a slowdown for going off the track as well, even though you were sort of
did well.
miles off the track to the left.
Right. Okay. So let's just take so I've just basically reset everything back to the rear, and if I'm not mistaken, my Road Atlanta community set that I shared was 225 on the back. Should be able to find that on the Apex Racing Season 4 setup guide tips and tutorials thread. That's in the Mercedes section on the iRacing forum. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a 225. I wouldn't be too far surprised if this set doesn't end very similar. And to answer the question, the 120 litres, yes, we have got 120 litres of fuel on board, by the way. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so obviously set 3. There's poor little Mercedes only has 3 different spring settings that you can do, so it doesn't take a great deal of time to try the different versions of the setup. So of course you've got set 2 and set 3, and they have they both say spring rate of 250, which is a bit weird. Sorry, 1 and 2 have the same spring rate of 250, but I've always been of the mindset that, based on what the car does with the ride heights, that set 1, either the spring is bigger itself, so in turn it becomes a bit stiffer. For set 1, I think set 1's just a bit stiffer. That's why you get an extra bit of ride height from it. So even though it says exactly the same, so it might have been better off going set 2. But just for the rest of this, I'm going to leave it back on set 3, because I know that's my go-to spring setting. In regards to the front, say for example, like you wanted a bit more. What I've got at the moment with it set really stiff at the front end. What the car does with a stiff front end. Sorry, can I go back? I'll just go back and just talk about what actually the car does with the stiff and the rear. Because I mentioned obviously it affects the ride heights as well. So when you're doing changes, but obviously a softer suspension that will give you through the high speed turns. That will give you less rotation. Going in and sort of through the middle. It should be a little bit more planted coming out of the slow speed corners, give you a little bit more traction as well. So if you want support in those areas, if the car's turning too much or it's just you're just spinning up the wheels, traction control's going mad coming out of the slow speed, then you're going to want that a little bit softer. So yes, generally softer is more traction and less rotation. Yeah, and vice versa. The stiffer is more rotation, less traction. On the front end with the spring rates, the stiffer the car, what it's going to do is going to make the car more pointy. So the car initially, when you turn in, or with a stiffer car, will actually initially turn in a bit quicker. So where a car, you want a car to be nice and pointy and good change of direction, will be somewhere where you've got like a lot of chicanes. So Monza might be a good one. Alton Park are all of the with the ones that has all like the Britons and things like that in there, where you got a lot of chicanes. Just trying to think of where else has a lot of chicanes.
Oh, which ones have you said?
Yes, the Alton Park with Britons and Monza.
Montreal.
Yeah, Montreal, of course.
Imola.
Yeah, Imola. There you go. So there's plenty.
I'm a chicane expert.
Mine's gone.
Le Mans.
Yeah,
It's
ish.
got about 5 chicanes, isn't that?
Yeah, true. But they're quite big things, aren't they? They're like turns. It's like a right turn or a left turn. So, but yeah, still in a way, if you want good change of direction, basically a stiffer car, a stiffer front end will do that. It'll make it like it'll bite to turn in really quickly. But what you'll do is, because it's a bit stiffer, is actually you'll lose grip in the middle of the corner.
Yeah.
So a lot of people might say, well, I've got a bit of understeer in the middle of the corner, or I've got understeer. It's like you need to sort of know where it is you have understeer. Do you have understeer on the way in? Do you have understeer in the middle, or do you have understeer on the exit? So if you've got understeer, say, on the middle and on the exit, then what I would suggest is that actually you do go softer on the front end. That will give you more grip from the middle off, where the stiffer car will actually give you more grip on entry into the middle. It'll turn in a little bit quicker and get in, but then from the middle off it'll give you a bit less grip. So of course the opposite is true. If you have oversteer going on the way in, actually a bit of a softer car might be a little bit better for you there, just so it's not so snappy on the way in, and then it might give you the support you want in the middle, and obviously the rotation off. But again, if it's oversteery on the way out of the corner, then a stiffer car will mean that the car will want to track out more to the exit of the corner, and it'll have less likely to over rotate coming off of the corner. So that's kind of what the springs are doing.
Mate, I'll just stop you there for a second. I'm just going to step away for a few minutes. I'll just be back I'll be back shortly.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I'll just carry on talking. Talking about the bars at the moment, because it's part and parcel of the suspension. So with the ARBs, again, let me just check because I'm solo here. Make sure you can see me okay. Yeah, with the ARBs, obviously front and back, they do a very, very similar thing, and they work very, very similar to how the springs work as well. So the stiffer the front anti-roll bar at the back, and you've got lots of anti-roll bar settings. So I find myself playing with the bar a lot in this particular car. That will affect the way the car turns in as well. So a softer bar basically acts exactly the same as the spring does. So it will be a little bit slower to respond. So the change of direction will be a little bit less, but the car will rotate. Will have a bit more bite going through the corner, and it'll have a bit more bite coming off the corner as well. So if you're pushing wide on exit of corner, for example, and it's constantly understeering to the point where it's understeer, and it's snap, so you get snap oversteer, you know, that softer bar on the front end will actually make the car rotate off just a little bit better, and you can get you just get a bit of extra support there, of course. And like I say, the opposite is true again if you find actually that the car just keeps turning coming off the corner, or it's just got too much, you know, the car just spins out on the way, you know, sort of in the middle of the turn, then a stiffer bar actually at the front will give you a little bit less of the middle and a little bit less coming out of the corner, so you can sort of balance the car here. I would probably suggest that we actually where we're at right now, just having to think of the balance. I'm going to go a little bit stiffer on the front end here, I think, because just want the car to sort of change direction a bit more in the S's. I'm going to go extreme with it and just go right up high, and I'll do some laps in a second. But we should notice the difference that the car changes direction through the S's a lot quicker, and through the chicane as well. And where are we on the rear? Let's just go to 3 on the rear as well. So that will give us a little bit less traction on the rear. Again, it's the same principle as the springs. So the stiffer the bar is at the back, physically it will make the car will turn a little bit more coming coming off the corner and through the middle of the corner. So you get a little bit less grip or more rotation with a higher ARB, so more oversteer. Or less understeer, as it might be if that's what you're suffering with. And with the softer bar, you'll get a bit more traction, so it'll be it'll turn in a little bit. The turn in with a softer bar will obviously be a little bit slower, because the change of direction, you know, won't be quite so good. But through the middle and through the off of the corner, it'll actually give you a bit more support and a bit more bite coming out of the corner. So let's just take it for a spin on that. Hopefully Andrew will be back in a second. But failing that, I'll come and answer some questions after I've just done this run. Yeah, sorry, it might be a little bit quiet. Just stick it to 4 laps. Like that, and I'll try and tell you what I'm feeling as the difference goes. Just a bit of oversteer there, but I think it's more just attacking the corner a bit much. Cheating. Oh, it's not even going to count. Okay, it's feeling nicer to me, just a lot more planted. I can lean on it a little bit more in places. rotating off the corner. Doesn't like it there, does it? Oh, it's gone. Kaboom!
You've got wheel damage.
Right, I tell you what, let's just come and just see if you've got any questions on that, and then I'll just move on a little bit. Oh, I haven't got the video up. Right. Okay. So yeah, that's how to wreck. I will say the car did feel a lot better, and obviously you saw the optimals just shooting down straight away there. So I think there's a lot of time to be had there. So the difference in what I felt there really was, like I say, I was just able to be a bit more aggressive on the way out of the corner. The car wasn't trying to sort of rotate off, it was just driving off of the corner nice, so I had a little bit more from the rear end, but the front end obviously didn't want to carry on pulling round, so that felt quite nice there. Let me just bring the garage up. Right, actually I'm glad I did that in a way, because what we got is obviously a difference in hot pressure. Now I only did a couple of laps here, but also if you've had a little spin or something like that, never take a note of what your last hot pressures were when you've just had a moment like that, because they're always going to be wrong, because these are the last hot pressures. These aren't like your average pressures over a lap or anything like that, kind of like the last hot pressures. So you should always try and stop the car, you know, steady when you're coming out, when you want to go into the garage, to give you a good reading of where they're going to be. They're obviously not going to suddenly all of a sudden go down to the same equal pressure. They're going to, you know, if there's an offset, you're still going to see that to a degree. But yeah, having a big old slide will affect what that last hot pressure is. So just be mindful of that as well. Do change that based on a clean run, not one that's full of like loads and loads of slides and mistakes and things like that. So right, let me just as Andrew's just disappeared, let's just have a quick look. After this I just joined. But how do you differentiate between, for example, I can't make this corner because of my setup versus I can't make this corner because I'm trying to take it too quickly? Okay, well actually there's a good example of that. Don't know if you you saw the not quite the last corner before the back straight, but the one just before that. So you've got the two right-handers after the S. You go through the S's, and you've got that really high curb that you have to sort of deal with on the exit, and then you've got the two right-handers. That first one. So there's a good way of telling it inside Motec. You know, there's a couple of good workbooks out there that really do that.
Hello, mate, I'm back.
Ah, good.
I saw you crashing though.
Yeah, I crashed in style. So, but I tell you, the crazy thing is I've not changed that because it feels so much better. But obviously I've got to look as to why obviously I lost it there. Beyond the fact that obviously I just saw big green and was like, yes, come on, let's have it.
Cheating as well. So
yeah. So yeah, but just to cover the point about obviously how to know when to go in when you're going into the corner too fast, whether it's the setup or not. So I think that corner I was on about there, I was braking at the sort of the white line that comes across. Now I know that was the braking I was using when I'm on high friction brakes, and I'm obviously running on medium, so the car's kind of like washing.
Yep.
So that's kind of a good example of like you're taking in too much speed for your setup. You know, when the car just sort of slides across the circuit. Now, of course, you can do some adjustments to the car to get it to turn in, but if it's just that one particular corner, and I know for this it's just happening on this one corner, or occasionally in turn one when I take too much speed in as well, where it just sort of just wants to just wash wide, and you can hear the tyres sliding and scrubbing because you've just gone beyond the slip angle of the tyre, and the grip that it's got.
Is that the limit of the car or the limit of the setup, do you think?
Yeah, well, it is the limit of the setup and in its current state. So you obviously can make adjustments, but what you need to do on there is like you need to prioritize that corner and say, well, do I need to focus on that corner, or do I need to focus on other corners? You know, because you've got a balance in the setup everywhere else. You need to say, well, am I just over driving it in that corner? So what you need to do is obviously take note of that in your own driving and just go, well, I'll back this up just a fraction so that I'm not over driving that corner. Let's see what it does. Let's see what sort of lap times I get, maximize it, and then go and do some tweaks so you can attack that corner a little bit more and it has got a bit more bite going in, or through the middle, for example. So I would suggest there, obviously you want the car to bite more, so it's going to be, perhaps a little bit stiffer to get it to bite turning in. So stiffer on the rear bar, something like that, stiffer on the rear suspension, and sort of say, well, has that give me a better balance overall over the lap, and you can go from there. But I think the first thing is to identify those areas where you are just sort of washing.
How do you work out the caster?
Yeah, so the caster, personally for me, the caster is all about feel. Right now it's at 11, which is I have to say is pretty high. If you kind of want more, you want a bit more feel in what the car is doing. You want to be able to save the car. Sorry, if you want more feel in what the car's doing, then a higher caster will do that. It like really ramps up like the force feedback that you get from the sim. Where a lower one, you get a lot less feel, but you can react to the car a bit quicker, and you can save the car a bit with lower caster. So there's no sort of technical way I do my caster setting. I'm afraid it is a case of, let me try a half a degree lower on caster, see if that car feels a bit nicer for me. The setting, I'm pretty convinced, is all about feel. There's very, very little sort of time to be had from there, and certainly in the team where we've tweaked the caster and things like that, people have just sort of gone, yeah, this feels good for me, this feels good for me, and then I'll try it, and I'll be like, it's pants, I don't like the way it feels at all, and I drive slower with it. So it's very much a personal preference, but I usually end up somewhere around about 10.8, I think, something like that. 10.3 I think I've been down to in some of my other settings. So you'll just tend to know what feels right for you. I see that I had a question about
the stream's struggling, mate. I can see there's it keeps stuttering a bit every now and again. I don't know what that's
okay. Let me shut some of them.
But I think a few people have had some issues.
Okay. Well, hopefully it comes back up in a second.
Oh, they didn't hear anything about the caster at all.
No.
Because you've got your video open on the...
Yeah, I've just shut that actually. It might have been because obviously I'm pulling the video in as well. So no drop frames there, which is a bit weird. So, okay, so yeah, so with the caster, for me, it's all about feel. Just give us a bit of a heads up if you can hear me now, and then I'll carry on. If not, then if I need to stop it and start it again, I can do and continue. It takes a few seconds. What is it, about 30 seconds or so for them
about 30 seconds
to come in?
Are you happy with what you did with the damping then so far?
So I haven't touched.
It looked like it's quite
I haven't
good.
touched damping. It was just so I've done suspension and ARBs.
Still?
Yeah, so far. So.
Sorry.
Yeah, what are people saying? Are we getting?
Nothing yet.
Oh.
Hold on. Oh, but you've just literally said that, I think.
Okay.
On the stream, it just takes a few seconds.
Yeah,
takes
it's about 30
seconds.
seconds, I think, isn't it? So yeah.
Just see what people come back with. There was a question about crossweight actually. Do you worry about the crossweight at all, or is it okay if it's close to 50%?
Like I say, I do want to get the
I think everyone can hear you as well.
Cool, perfect. Okay, so let's talk about crossweight for a second then. Crossweight you want at 50%, but what you want is the 50%, you want it to be 50% when it's on the track, when the pressures have heated up. Now, probably weren't I imagine the question come from somebody who didn't catch the very first part of the stream, where
Yes, I think
where
so.
we showed obviously the fact that we've got uneven tyre pressures in the garage, so that can affect like what we had earlier on, where we had like one camber was 1.4 with a certain ride height and 1.3 on the back, and that was due to the fact that we had uneven tyre pressures in the garage. And that's the same principle again. Now that we've adjusted things further, like the bars, change the bars has a lot of effect on how the crossweight can be in there as well. So right now we have 50.1 on the crossweight, but because I know that the tyre pressures over a run are even, I know that actually that crossweight will go back to being 50.0. It'll be spot on. So that's what you want to do. And like I say, if you ever want to check it, we were, what were we, 186 was it, the hot pressure that we were getting?
Yeah, it was.
Or 185 I think it'd gone down to, or something like that.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, so you put the pressures up to where you were, apply it, and then there you go. So we're back to the 50%. So that's what it will actually be on the track, opposed to what it is in the garage, which gives us the 50.1. So it's very easy to forget that, you know, this is a stationary thing, and it adjusts itself on the track. So, but yes, about the caster as well. Caster, for me, it's very much a personal feeling, dependent on how heavy you want the wheel to be, how much force feedback you want to come through. You might want the car just to be you might want it to be a little bit lighter. If the car feels like really heavy to you, it feels like a tank, you know, it's just too much, you think, oh my god, you know, and it's affecting how you're turning in, and it just feels like not nimble enough, then lowering the caster will help that. You'll be able to turn the car in a lot easier. You won't need to put so much force into it and things like that. So right now I'm just on my Fanatic, so I could run the caster at flat out and it would still feel pretty easy to get the car turned in. So compared to my Bodna, so yeah. So it's not really too much of an issue, but yeah. So that's down to a personal feeling. If you, like say, lower setting, if you want the car, you know, if you want to turn it in a lot freer, a lot easier, and a higher setting if you just feel like there's no feeling in the car whatsoever, you know, it's like, where's all my force feedback gone? Then pump the caster up until you get the right feeling that you want. Right, what shall we speak about next?
We've got damping.
Damping,
for
okay.
Everybody.
Yeah, okay, fine. So take the old gloves off for damping. I don't think we need to go out on the track for damping, but we'll make some tweaks. And
is it generally a good starting point that you have anyway with the damping, with the default setup?
I tell you what, the dampers aren't too bad. They did a pretty decent job with these baselines, I have to say. I mean, there is time to be had in them, that's for sure. But generally, then they're not too bad. I mean, it's middle of the ground really. It's nothing too flash, as what iRacing have done there. So it's kind of, you know, they haven't gone after it and set it up for any particular track. So. What we'll talk about then, we'll talk about low speed damping first. So on the front end, what exactly does the low speed damping, like the compression damping, do? So this everything that's low speed affects how the car transitions in and out of a corner. So if, for example, we want the car to rotate in a little bit nicer to the corner, be a bit freer on the way in, there's two things that we can do for that. So we can, the front compression damping, we can basically have less damping here, and what that will do is that will allow the car to sort of, you know, to sort of sit down a little bit easier. So think of it as more damping, like a good way to explain it is if anyone's done any RC racing, you know, where you had the old shocks, and then it has like a piston inside it with the oil, and it's got the holes, and obviously the more holes that you have, the shock moves up and down freer. So the least holes means you have more damping, so it's trying to stop that damper from going. It's really difficult to push it in, you know, because you're trying to force all of the oil through one hole kind of thing. So it's really difficult to do it. So And then obviously when you have lots of holes open, you have hardly any damping, so you have less damping, and it's easy to push it in. There's hardly any sort of restriction to it, because it just flows through all the holes. So with less damping, the car will have less of an issue to sort of dip the front end down. This will obviously affect the ride height at speed. So
under braking, are we saying?
yeah, under braking and transitioning into a corner as well. As it goes in. So the car will turn in a little bit more to a corner that we have less damping on the front, because the front end will squat, sort of squat down. I suppose that's the right expression. Front end will squat down easier, which in turn obviously gives you a bit more rake. So then you get a bit of aero balance adjustment because of it, and you get obviously the fact that the car will transition in and bite more into the front tyres quicker, so it'll help it turn into the corner. So these really are fine adjustments. I mean, in the Merc, was it 1 to 10? I think 1 to 8. 1 to 8. So really not a huge amount of adjustment at all. So if a one click here can make quite a difference to how the car rotates into the corner. It might just want a tiny little bit more going in. Well, then one click down on that will help. Don't go extreme. Don't go straight to like 1, for example, because you might just go too far. Try it on 1. Go do some testing. And suddenly think, well, wasn't really any better. I didn't really feel anything. Then go and try another one. You'll get to the point where you either go a bit quicker or you go a bit slower. And then you can obviously try the opposite direction. So,
yes.
If you want to just do a click exercise, if you can't feel what the car needs from you, or you need from the car, whether you want it to turn in more, you can just do it as kind of like a radio tuning exercise, where you used to tune the old radio. Right, I'll try a bit this way, try a bit more. No, that's not as good. I'll go back a bit. You can do that process. So you could start with say 5, and you could go up, and then you could try down until you get like that perfect point, and just use your optimals and deltas to help you find it. So if you struggle to feel the car, that's a good way of doing it. Use the timing, use the delta to help there. And again, test it over a reasonable run. That should give you an idea, see what it's doing over the run. So you imagine that can take quite some time to do that. Now, I said there's 2 ways of getting the car to turn in more when you do with the damping as well. So the opposite is we can look at the low speed rebound on the rear of the car as well. So like the front, of course, when it dips in the front, so the front end comes down. What happens when we go into a corner is that the car actually sort of transitions and does that, so the back end comes up as well. So it's not going to matter so much if we have the front end so soft that it just wants to go bush, but the back end's staying down in a braking zone. The car really does act like a sort of like a seesaw to a degree. So the rear rebound, when you want the car to transition into the more corner, this slow speed rebound, you want to free that up as well. Otherwise, the damping's going to keep that rear end down. It's not going to stop it from poking up, so the car's not free to transition into the corner. So less damping on the rear will also mean that the car will get into the corner a little bit better. Now, of course, if you've got oversteer going into the corner, well, the opposite's true. We can stiffen up the front damping, and we can make the rear damping a little bit stiffer as well, and that will keep the car from having like crazy amounts of rake into it as well. Can also help. It might be that with the heavy braking zones or turning in or the high speed corners, you might just need a bit of support where you got lots of rake because you're stamping on the brakes, kind of thing. This can control the ride height a little bit as well, which means that the car might not be so snappy turning in on like a heavy braking zone area or something like that. So
I mean, essentially all these different components of setup building, just about making the car as flat as possible at all times, isn't it? Really, it's about making it well behaved.
Well, yeah,
as little movement as possible.
I wouldn't necessarily say as little movement as possible or as flat as possible, but it's making it feel as comfortable as possible.
Yes.
So if if at the minute it's turning in too much, you know what I mean, and the back end's just getting a little bit loose as you come in, yeah, then a couple of clicks stiffer on the front compression damping, a couple of clicks stiffer on the rear rebound, that will just settle it down a little bit. Now, of course, if it's dog lazy and doesn't want to get in, and you for whatever reason you can't afford to change it with the aero balance, and you can't afford to change it with the ARBs and the suspension because of the way the track is, for example, you might be forced to a higher suspension or something like that, or a softer suspension because of certain traction areas coming out of low speed and whatnot like that. So the back end's really sluggish and doesn't want to get in the corners. Then you can free the car up by dropping it down that way. So you can use the damping to sort of go in, and you can fine tune the specific area of the corner that you want. So you've got the compression on the front, the rebound on the back is the way into the corner. That's all you're adjusting. Changing those settings will not affect how the car comes off, because the minute that you get on the gas, the minute the car will transition from being front heavy, pushing the weight onto the front tires, to then pushing it onto the back. Of course, when you're coasting, in theory, you should be level. We don't necessarily want to coast, but traditionally, when you're coasting, you're still slowing down, so you've still got a little bit on the front end of the car. So when we want to look at the exit of the corner, then we have to look at different areas of the damping as well. So those areas are obviously the low speed rebound damping on the front and the low speed compression on the rear. So what we're basically getting now is, just think of it, when you smash the gas pedal, what does the car do? It goes like this, doesn't it? Well, it doesn't do that. It's, dragster might do, 'cause you see them like the funny cars and things like that. So So what effectively you're doing, if you want more grip from the car, say coming out of like let's say Montreal hairpin, really good example of where you might want a bit more bite coming out of the corner. So if you're stopping the car from squatting down, actually you're taking away a little bit of grip for it, because it's not pushing obviously the rubber into
not biting into the racetrack as you would like,
exactly as much as it could be. So so what you would do is you have the option of two things to do here. So you can obviously soften up the rebound at the front, so that the front will poke up, and it will force the back down a little bit, or you can do both at the same time, which is soften the compression at the back here as well, and then in part with here. And then what that will do is that will allow the car, I hope you guys can see my hand gestures.
I can see, I'm just watching the hand. It's just
that will help it squat back down a little bit.
The sign language man on the BBC.
Yeah, exactly. And then the car's going to get a little bit more bite and go. Now, if, say, for example, what's a good corner for here, and we'll just experiment with
traction
with this one. I'm thinking, well, actually, this is going to be for opposite of what I was just about to say. So let's just say that the car didn't come off the corner like you wanted it to. You wanted more rotation coming off. Now I'm thinking of, we go turn 1 and we've got turn 2. We go over the sort of like the blind corner, and then you've got the left, and then you've got that right. That right's always a pig to get the car in. It feels like the car always understeers around there.
Yeah, and then you end up turning in too early.
Yeah, exactly.
The downhill right, sort of in that roller coaster section, before you then hit the outside curb and then go up the hill.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
So I'm just gonna tweak some damping adjustments. I've gone extreme. I've gone straight to maximum on that. So what I basically have said, right, I want the car to rotate much more off of the corner. So I've adjusted the low speed rebounds. So it's trying to keep the car a little bit flatter. So that's gonna give me more rotation off of the corner. And then on the back, I've also stiffened it up as well, so the car's not squatting there. Now it's going to be worse in the traction zones, but I just want to have a look just in that particular corner, going into the S's, whether it's going to be quicker or not. In theory, that's what it should be.
A quick one. In terms of Caston's got a question that says, which damping settings are interesting when coming off the brakes assume it means for stability reasons.
Yeah, well, again, that's going to be down to, you know, what I was saying. You know, if the car is rotating in too much, when you're coming off the brakes, you're gonna have to stiffen up the front compression and stiffen up the rear rebound, or sorry, not stiffen, more dampen. So let's get that clear. I don't know why I always say it's soft and stiff, but yeah, it's more or less dampened.
Makes
so,
sense.
Yeah. So
This
just so that it doesn't.
Seeing on the stream going down the hill, yeah, that's the corner.
Yeah. So it just doesn't turn so much when you come off of the brakes. Of course.
What happens if you're coming off the brakes and the car's spinning? Does that mean that you're not coming off the brakes slowly enough, almost, or?
Yeah. Well, there's two parts to that. I would say probably you're braking too late, too aggressive. So usual sign. But also it's
Steering angle?
yeah,
well?
it's just got too much, you know, it's got too much turn on it, so you just want to restrict that. So again, you want stiffer, more damping, sorry.
Alright, yeah.
Well, there you go. It did go there like I expected it to, but a bit too much, a bit too extreme
Where was that?
at that corner. So,
Oh, the corner we were talking about.
yeah, let's do another lap.
So you put. Let's have
But
a
it
look.
turned off there, like, you know, really well. So
Having a quick look at that. So we're going left, then we're going over the hill. Left again.
but it might just be that
Oh yeah.
I just got to be, you know, you just got to be ready for that now. So again, you got to give it a couple of laps because it's going to change the balance of the car completely. So
How much steering lock did you have on there?
I said a lot.
Very much. Yeah. So you've got the old optimal down under the 120. Definitely making some progress. So we've gained about a second, haven't we, really, from where we were originally? Fair to say.
Yeah, I would think it's probably about half a second. I think there was more time in the
Some of it
actual.
in the driver.
Yeah, at the start, didn't really give it that much. Comes off of turn one a lot easier as well. It's easier to get over to the right.
You had a lot of on that previous lap that you did. You were a lot quicker down the straight than off the tight section. You just took another 2/10 off your optimal nearly. Yeah, it doesn't look good from where I'm sitting. Anyway, on this lap, on these last couple of laps, it looks very twitchy now on the way in. Is that fair to say, or is that just?
Yeah. What you also missed was that I changed the bars as well,
Right.
Andrew. Yeah, so they are. It is a little bit more. It does turn in a little bit too much at the minute. So probably need to go back and adjust those bars. Just turn them down a little bit. Maybe one click on the rear or one click on the front, so it's not so grabby.
Dave Gillink says he uses dampers to deal with the imperfections in the road more than change the pitch or roll characteristics of the car. So I guess that's the other, because that is the other use for it, really, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
to-
well, I tend to
just
use
make
the
it
I tend to use the high-speed damping for that. You know, with the old settings, where it used to be just damping. You know, you can't. That was kind of like what I used to do as well, exactly the same. So, but yeah, now that we've got high and low speed, you can do both. You know.
You missed the chicane again, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
So it was going quite well until then. Well, you had an off track on that lap. So. But yeah, so what are you feeling now then, as you've made those changes?
I mean, certainly is coming off the corners a lot nicer.
That's that
but
bite that you were
but
talking
but
about,
it's
that
too
slowing
it's too
down,
much.
isn't
If you watch just coming out of the right hander onto the straight, the car just wanted to carry on turning. It's just too extreme. But I did go like super stiff, you know. So
So you went extreme on purpose. You are getting a lot of grip, and you're getting some good braking out of it as well. But definitely seem to be good quite good on the brakes with this setup.
Right, let's do one more lap and then we'll come and talk about the high speed.
Yeah. Sorry for the a little bit quiet. I'm just watching the driving at the minute. seeing what you're doing, but somebody saying stop saying stiff and soft because it's confusing them.
Confuses me, don't worry. More or less.
Yeah, thanks for joining us anyway, Apex Racing TV. For this Apex Racing Academy stream, Andrew Woodhouse, Alex Simpson with you at Road Atlanta in the Mercedes AMG GT3. It's a Q&A setup tutorial. And we're currently on part 5, which is how to configure the dampers. We've covered tyre pressures, we've covered cambers, aerodynamics and suspension. Now we're on dampers. We've still got differential, brake bias and also qualifying setups to go as well, which that'll be maybe the part that I'm interested in the most because I'm never really sure about what exactly to change here. This may be a stupid question, Alex, but what the gear ratios like in this car? Is there much room? Is there any room for changing?
Yeah, there's two adjustments you can do: standard and short. I tend to lean towards standard, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I think it's either third gearing up that it changes or fourth gearing up that it changes. It doesn't really do an awful lot, so. I think, you know, with the shorter tracks, again, like we were talking about, like Alton Park and Donington and stuff, you'd use the short, but the longer ones, like here, you'd use the standard. But you can use standard here, short here as well. I don't even think it tops it out. So.
Oh, okay.
It's just like where you want some of those taller gears to kind of.
Maybe in the corners more than anything else.
Yeah. Right. So. The general verdict was that was probably just a little bit over the top as it was right there, so I would just go back in and just dial it down a little bit and try again, kind of thing. So, but for the sake of this video, we won't worry about that, as we kind of explain what it does, an example of, you know, how it would change the feel coming off of the corner. So, but to pick up on Dave's point as well, and as I mentioned in there, like not every car has the low speed and the high speed. So like the Formula Renault, for example, just has damping. That's it.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
And in the Renault, I'm exactly the same as Dave. I use the dampers to sort out like bumps and undulations, like where it drops down, like mid Ohio, like where, you know, where you come over the crest and stuff like that. I would just use that from there, and then I will tweak the suspension to get the balance that I want based on how I want the dampers set, because that helps the car quite a bit there. So and like the old Williams was exactly the same because it just had damping. There was no high speed and low speed and stuff like that. So I do affect that. Now with the low speeds will make an effect in, say, like, you know, this particular bit that we're looking at on the track right now, which was going over the crest, because that doesn't quite fall into high speed because it is quite a slow drop away, so it kind of activates the low speed more of that. And the tip I'll give as the track drops away, what's kind of happening is that the track is the track is coming away from the wheels, or the wheels are not coming down fast enough. So what you need to do is you need to have less damping so that the wheels can stay in contact with the
wheels can fall quicker.
Exactly. And what you've actually got to look at it is, even though the wheels coming down, that's not compression, you know, because compression's actually when it gets smaller. It's rebound. That's what it's doing.
Compression is when, say, bottom of Eau Rouge, when you start going up the hill.
Correct. Exactly. Perfect. Yeah, that's that's where the compression is going to come into to effect there. So, but yeah, so coming over this crest here, we're looking at the rebound. So the low speed rebound will take an effect. So lower on the rebound there will have a difference, and that's just because it is actually quite slow, so it will fall into to what you're saying. So again, agreeing with Dave on that part, it can have an effect in places. So again, so you could do some changes based on what you want from the car as to rotate in and out, or fine tune the rotation. But you can also affect how the car is over that crest coming down there, so you might lose a load of traction, so you need to go back there and try and sort it out elsewhere in the setup. With the high speed dampers, these work in a fairly obvious way as well. So what we're thinking about here is more like curbs. So let's just bring the replay up and get to the problem when you haven't got a decent, I haven't put a camera pack in it, whatever, rear suspension one. Yeah, oh, here we go. And there is a front one. Wrong side. And of course this is the wrong side as well, so we're not going to hit that curb. Yeah. Oh, damn it. When you needed the other side, so let's get the outside of the car. Oh no, there is rights as well. Yeah, there we go. So when we come over the the blind corner, and you've got this curb that we always sort of cut across. Right now, we engage like the high speed compression damping here. Can't really see it as the Merc just glides over that. So good. Maybe at full speed. Yeah, you can see it just sort of comes in. So when it hits the high part of the curb, what it's doing is the wheel's getting whacked up in towards the sort of like the bodywork, and that's your compression there coming into effect. We take it from outside the car. You can sort of see it a bit better. So now what we want basically the car to do here is we want the car to glide over that curb as smoothly as possible, but then in return, when the wheel comes down off of the other side of the curb or the bump or whatever it might be, you want it to come down basically at the same rate is kind of what you're after. That way the car won't have a habit of sort of pogoing, is the expression that gets widely used in iRacing. So
because if you're in the air, you're not turning.
Well, true, exactly.
If your wheel's in the air, you're not turning. It's not laying any traction down. It's not doing all the things that make a car fast.
Yeah. So you want the wheel to go up, or be allowed to go up at the same speed as the curb, and you want it to come down at the same speed as on the way down, kind of thing as well. So it makes contact, but you don't want it to be sort of too fast, so that it hits the ground early, and then the car is sort of bouncing as well. So you kind of this is how you got to affect the damping here. So just from an experience, when you get a lot of pogo in the car, it tends to be that actually that the high speed compression is too stiff, and it's too much damping on the high speed compression, and then not enough on the high speed rebounds. Yeah, so the car will sort of go into a curb, and it will just absolutely smack it, because the wheel's not being allowed to move up with the curb, if that kind of makes sense. So like really big sharp curbs kind of thing. Where am I thinking? I'm thinking like Sebring, or like Watkins Glen. It's got a couple of really sharp curbs in it as well. Yeah, that sort of place. Imola, they're quite vicious curbs, and the car will need to be like the high speed compression will need to be fairly soft on that. Sorry, less damping. I know what I mean. To allow, just to allow basically for the suspension to jerk up, so that the damping just allows it to move quickly with the curb. Now a much flatter curb, so like the curbs that say Spa, for example, when you go through like Lecum in Spa,
Yes.
those are quite gradual curbs. You go up and they're fairly big. You sort of like go up and you go down kind of thing. Well, you can afford to have that, have a bit more damping on there just to go with that as well, so that you can, it'll ride up the curb with it, and it won't just get spat up into the wheel arch kind of thing. You want it to stay down with it. So you can get a good idea what the car's doing looking at the replays. Actually, it gives you a pretty good judge. If you want to get into the nitty gritty of high speed damping, it's really where you need to get Motec out, and that's kind of going to fall into like our advanced stuff that we do. But Peter Chamberlain in iRacing does a really good workbook. He puts all of the instructions on how to use that and how to set up everything in there. So if you want to get into the nitty gritty of it, go and download that, get Motec up and working. In our free section on our forum, we've got links on how to get it all up and running, and then you can use that workbook with his instruction manager to get their high speed damping set absolutely spot on using the figures that are in Motec. But the general rule of thumb is when you're dealing with high curbs, you're going to want to let the suspension move a lot quicker, so a less damping. When it's a bit flatter, then you can afford to run it up a bit. You're going to be running it up a bit stiffer, and then on the rebound is going to be very, very similar as well. So
Yeah.
You're going to want the car's going to come down with a thud off a sharp curb, where it's just been spat up into the air, so the wheels are like, so you want to. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to slow the car down so that it doesn't just go whack bang whack bang whack bang whack bang and keep going, so you kind of want to dampen that off. So that's where you get the pogo in those high curbs, is because the car is being allowed to hit the deck or the bump stop or the bump rubbers and go up again kind of thing. You want to use the high speed rebound damping to stop that. It doesn't. They work the same front and back. There's no difference on that. So, So again, so if you're getting pogo, and it really looks like it's going to be more to do with the rebound. So I would go up on your rebound high speed. It tends to sort that problem out.
Craig on the chat saying you went over the cambers, but he sees that your middle and inside are different temperatures.
Yep. Of course, we've done a few tweaks and changes and stuff like that now. And I'm not so much interested in the temperature, but more the wear. And you are right that this would give a little bit more wear on the inside edge. Again, that's where you might fine tune. So you might go down a click on the camber on the front to do it. So I didn't actually make any camber changements whatsoever. I just sort of talked about them. So I didn't. I wouldn't necessarily say anybody to go and throw this setup on right now. If you want to grab a set of ours to try, then jump in the free section of the forum and grab those ones on there. So I can't remember if they're 1.8. Well, I actually think they were slightly higher based on the settings that we ended up with. So, but
of course, Alex, if anybody is watching on YouTube, actually tell everybody how they can get involved with the Apex Racing Academy.
Yeah, so just head on over to the Apex Racing UK website, so apexracinguk.com. On there, you can click in the Academy section that's in the Teams tab, or go onto our forum, and there's an Academy section there, and just you can read up all about it on our forum. But we do obviously season-long classes, as well as like just basic sort of membership access to it as well, so you can get hold of our setups that we share on there, as well as a lot of in-depth tutorials, videos. Or we've got videos like this covering all of Motec and iSpeed, and I think actually next season we've got some plans to do some VRS ones and some iAnalyze ones as well. So Got Oval coming on board as well. Tyler Hudson going to rerun in the Academy 2.0 Oval classes. So yeah, lots going on that front. So
Excellent.
yeah, do come and check us out. Drop me any messages if you want to know a little bit more. I'll be happy to help you out on that front.
I thought it wouldn't be. I thought it wouldn't be right if we didn't let you do a cheap plug as normal.
No, not at all.
I think the stream's died again.
Oh.
I think it's definitely died this time.
Completely.
But it's been dead for about 40 seconds.
I'm not dropping any frames again.
Oh, maybe that's just my end then. Be me? Oh no. Wait, we're back now.
Okay.
I'm back now. I don't know what that was. It could well have been me, but I know a couple of people did lose it as well, so.
Okay, fine. Should we push on? I mean, now we've been here for a couple of hours now, so just we'll try and run through these things. What are we up to?
2.5 hours.
2.5, right, jeez.
2.5. So we have got have we done differential yet?
We haven't done diff, no.
So diff and brake bias then, that's the last part of the actual setup theory then, before we do the qualifying setup. Yeah, I think we're just struggling a little bit, I think, mate, with just...
I'm not dropping...
A little bit of buffery and a little bit sort of...
Yeah, I'm not dropping any frames here, so weird.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's mostly back now for everybody, so...
Okay.
I'll keep an eye on it.
So onto brakes then. So right, so I'm gonna test. I'm gonna change instantly now that we've hit brakes and go to high friction, and that's just because that is a personal thing for me, based on how
away everything that you've done in terms of learning the car.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna have to completely learn how to drive it again. So just because again, the way I've got my brake pedal set up, it works better with high friction because I struggle to get 100% brakes at the best of times, you know. So like low, if I put low on, like the car just goes straight on, you know, I get nowhere near it. So but yeah, so that's just a personal thing. So what does the brake bias do? Pretty straightforward, really. What we're trying to do is we're trying to look for the corner that gives us we're trying to avoid locking up as much as possible. Now, of course, we've got ABS that helps us massively here, so it's very, very rare for us to actually lock up the car. So we're more looking at the brake bias in a way to be kind of like used how the car, we can help it transition off the brakes and into the corner.
And as smoothly as possible, usually.
Exactly,
as well,
exactly.
The one thing you don't want...
You can fine-tune that.
Yeah, and the one thing you don't want, now that you've built in all this stability into the setup, is then to take it away with bad brake settings.
Yeah, so, I mean, although I've put this quite low down, it is kind of like one of the things that I will tweak as well as doing everything else on the way through. Like, if I'm constantly locking up, you know, I won't just leave that and carry on building everything else. I will tweak the brake bias and I'll adjust it, you know, backwards so that I have slightly lower percentage so the car is less likely to lock up the fronts, you know. So, but yeah, with the GT3s, it's not such an issue because of the ABS. So you can just use it to fine tune. Now, with this setup, do you remember me saying that I thought that it was perhaps just turning in a bit too quick?
Yeah.
So
definitely.
What I could do is I could probably use the brake bias just to do a minor little adjustment here on that.
Yes.
So,
but it's perfect because really in this car, like you said, it's more of a tool for adjusting the balance than adjusting actually the braking because of the locking that we've now eliminated with the ABS.
Yeah. What we do have to be careful of is we can't go nuts with moving it forward because obviously in the braking zones we'll cause the fronts to be like, the fronts will have a huge amount of heat. So obviously the more heat, the less traction through the corner and the more wear as well. So we'll be burning out the fronts a lot quicker. So, but you know, tracks that are rear limited, you know, you can almost you can set the car at a bit more of a forward brake bias setting, and sort of you're not trying to balance it out or anything like that. It's just that you can get away with it, and actually the wear over a run will be a little bit closer. So as long as you've built your setup around that particular balance, it's going to be okay. But yeah, the real thing is it's just finite tuning how the car goes in and out of the corner. If that back end just gets a little twitchy as you're coming off the brakes kind of thing into the corner, then you just a little click forward. Now of course, if the car is ploughing straight on, you're on the brakes and just damn thing just keeps on going straight, you're like turn then you move the brake bias back. I mean, on the McLaren, for example, I know that we've had the brake bias at like I want to say something like 44%. Crazy far to the back. So I'm not sure if it's still out there now. I haven't drove the car for that one for a little while, but yeah. So you can go pretty crazy, and that will help the car obviously turn off the corner, but also is stopping the heat in the front end as well of the tyre. So you've got a lot of grip available for turning kind of thing as well. So it doesn't wear out the front so much. So this might be a really good thing to do with the Mercedes as well. But again, you've got to balance the car with that as well. And you can fine tune that if you want to say, well, let's try this. This extra balance. This extra rear to it. What you'll find is that you might lock up the rears then, so you need to stop. You need to find a way of stopping to lock up the rears if you go too far backwards with it.
Yeah.
And that's when the diff comes into play as well. So the diff can be used for a couple of things. What you're effectively doing is a higher preload will mean that you've got more locking force on the diff, so that as you're trying to turn into a corner, the car will. The diff won't be so free, so the car won't want to turn as much. So the more you've got will do that, and that's the same principle when you're on the brakes as well. So if you've got a bit more rearward brakes, but the car is just a tiny little bit loose, just you think, I could do it just being a little, then go a couple of clicks on the rear diff, and that will just lock up that rear diff a little bit more and stop that rear locking going on, because both tyres will be going at the same. Of course, if both tyres are locking, then no amount of diff is going to do that. It's just too far backwards.
This is certainly a thing that you would adjust probably corner by corner, wouldn't you? If you're having trouble with a certain corner,
exactly.
You may change the brake bias for the entire lap.
Yeah, and you see you
can adjust it though, can't you?
You can adjust it, and you see a lot of people adjust brake bias going into heavy braking zones and stuff like that, but others they might not need it. So like going into like a hairpin corner, for example, you're much more likely with rearward brake bias to lock up those rears, no matter what you do with the diff, for example. If you're only locking the inside wheel up, for example, as you're starting to turn in and that's causing you to spin, then the diff will help that from happening. Just a one click here, a click there will fine tune that. But if you're locking both up going into you've just got to move the brake bias forward, and that's why you see them doing it in F1 and all sorts of series. They hammer in their brakes. They'll just go down. They'll go down and just click that brake bias a little bit further forward, so they don't lock up the rears. But then everywhere else on the track, they've got the bias a bit further backwards, so that they can still get the car rotating into the corners nicely.
Is it something that you personally will do during a race, or will you just generally have it at a certain level and leave it there?
I might adjust my brake bias over a run, because
but not corner to corner necessarily.
Sometimes, I mean, in the F1 car, I certainly have. There's a few corners that made me change it. So Sebring, the first hairpin at Sebring, I have a habit of changing the bias for that one. Suzuka hairpin.
The one with the big curve on the inside. Oh no, the hairpin at the end of the straight. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly that one. Yeah, Suzuka, the hairpin at Suzuka, I have a habit of changing it there as well. Just because I feel like just the way the track.
Weird corner though.
Yeah, the way the track is, like the rear always seems to lock for me going in there. So yeah, I might go forward like a percentage or something like that. It just tends to help sort that out so that I don't get loose at all.
Well, again, it's a personal preference thing, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
let's
exactly. It really is. And then,
let's face it, some drivers can micromanage and some can't.
yep, yeah.
I definitely.
My brake bias buttons are just set on my wheel. It's easy for me to do. You know, it's just I can just really click it down. It's super easy. Car stopping easy now.
I mean, it was enough for me having to do weight jacker in the IndyCar on every corner.
Yeah.
That was, and to be honest, it's quite mentally sapping, isn't it? Really, even if it's sort of a habit, having to do the same adjustments, sort of, especially on a fast oval where you may be making an adjustment every sort of 5 to 10 seconds. It can sometimes take your eye off the ball, can't it? Really.
Yeah, big time, and I'll tell you that. Like
qualifying
for Indy is pretty crazy, isn't it? You know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, massively. But but especially if you say make a mistake with it, then it can just completely screw your thinking when it comes to the next corner. But I guess with something like if you were adjusting the brake bias, say down this long straight here where you've just come down, you've obviously got a lot more time to think and a lot more time to prepare. And actually, you've got quite a while before the next braking zone, which is turn 1, to adjust it back again if you need to. So, I mean, would you say that? I mean, is this a track that you would ever make adjustments in the GT3 car?
I personally haven't done round here, but over a run you might want to do it because it might become a bit trickier going into this braking zone. You know.
It might be a stupid question, but that's what I'm here for, to ask the stupid questions. Is it really a case of if the front tyres are wearing more rear bias and if the rear tyres are wearing more front bias? Is that simple? Is it that simple all the time?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and doing a long run will prepare you for that as well. You'll know what the car's going to do over the run. So.
Again, like I say, everybody.
Preparation makes a big deal, you know. So
that's what I'm here for. I'm the slight. Not exactly a noob, but I drive like one, so that's why I asked the question.
I mean, I did this really for you, mate, wasn't it?
Mate, I need to start getting my A license back. It's been taking my eye off the ball really in the last couple of years of that. I would quite like to have a go at pro in something. I don't really know what. Probably this, if I'm honest with you. At least having the A license would give me a chance come next year.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take anything away from this series, can you? It's now by far the best on iRacing. You know, it's always busy. You can always have a race. It's great fun.
Competitive. Yeah. You know, it's good overtaking. There's to be honest, there's a fair bit of crap driving. But there's also its fair share of very good driving, and I think it balances it out quite well. It's always an exciting race, and you know, people do complain to iRacing and saying, "Oh, how come you've got so many GT cars?" But when it's popular, I mean, why not? People are going to keep buying them, and if people are going to keep having participation in the races, that was easy for me to say, then it's a no-brainer. Especially when you've got some older cars that are now coming back into popularity, a bit like the Ford GT and you know, the Rough are being used for more than they were maybe a few months ago. So I think it's all positive, man. Especially if we get, you know, if they start filling out GT3 with some of the missing ones, then that'd be great, you know. For the Ferrari announcement.
I was about to say, are we going to get the Ferrari? Or is that just going to be GTE?
There'll be a GT, I mean, definitely a GTE version, but you never know, it might open the door for a GT3 spec Ferrari in the future, but of course that's down to iRacing and the people with the money, I guess. Would be nice to get a Nissan GTR though, and that is my completely biased comment. I really like to see that car because I do love that thing, even though you don't see it very much anymore in GT3. They've just built a Super GT one though, Alex. I do recommend you see that. If it looks amazing, I will say. Bad Santa on the chat says you need Porsche to get with it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they do.
I do agree. 911 GT3, please. That'll do. I know we have the Rough already, but can't beat the real thing. Maybe an LMP1 car as well while we're at it. Right.
Oh, I don't
back
recall doing that.
to the business at hand.
Yeah, so I just did a little run there with the high friction brakes, and for me, it felt different, and of course I straight away went quicker. So
Personal best.
and there's way more time to become in that as well. The confidence, because I can get the car stopped a bit quicker, is so it's so different,
Yeah.
And
Did you spin again?
no, that was a replay from way back. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so with the brakes, like I say, everyone is different. Everyone has different equipments. They're calibrated different and everything. So just because you get a setup off the forum that says, "Oh yeah, it's this," do you know what I mean? Don't necessarily use that. I think whenever you get a setup, if it's meant to be good, you know what I mean, then obviously that's the only thing you should probably change, is like what your brake pad friction is. Before you even get in the car. If you get it, and you always run on high brakes and it's on low brakes, go and change it to high brakes. Because your brake pedal, your braking is always a personal thing. So, and then maybe tweak the bias and things like that with it as well, and then you can double check all of that person's findings with their cambers and pressures and all that sort of stuff. So. I don't think we spent a lot of time on the diff, but there's not really too much to say on that. Of course, obviously the it affects the way the car comes into the corner. Less locking will let the car run freer into the corner. More will stop it from turning, so you give you a bit of understeer. Of course, if you have too much lock on the way out, it won't allow the rear wheels to spin at different speeds. So that can make the tyre scrub on the floor, if that makes it, on the ground. It can break traction, because it's trying to keep the outside wheel or the inside wheel travelling at the same speed as the outside wheel. So this will just sort of be wheel spinning effectively coming out of the corner, and you'll lose traction and spin out there. So just do be a little bit careful on that. Too much rear diff too much preload will cause that as well. So you've got to fine tune the diff, not only for the entry but also for the exit. So a good corner, for example, of that where it might be a little bit too, where you can go too crazy, would be like Parabolica at Monza. Very very good corner to notice that. Go there, whack that preload right up, and come out of that corner and smash that gas pedal, and you'll feel that inside right rear spin up very very quickly, because the diff is locking the rear wheels together, and that just can't spin at that speed and keep traction, so you'll just get a little bit loose. So just try coming down a click on that, and or a click or two, and that should allow it to stay free coming out of there and stay connected to the road. Of course, the opposite is true. You can have it too loose, and then it will give you just trying to think exactly what it does there. Is well, it just you kind of want a bit, it will understeer in a way, kind of thing. It will be so free that it's not really doing anything. You still want it to have sufficient lock that it's going to drive off the corner, I think is what I'm kind of saying there. It's a bit of a tough one to explain. You can go too far with it. So I think the key thing is to find the point where it's too much, and then dial it back a little bit. So because you'll be tweaking your preload on how the car transitions into the corner more than anything anyway. So what are we on to Q set now?
So yeah, we have the final section, which is how to convert the race setup to qualifying. Okay,
so let's just say this is our race set that we've got. We know what the balance is. By now we will have known what the hot pressure target is, like where the car feels the best on the hot pressure. Let's just say for this particular exercise it's 185. What I would just be doing, because we only get 2 laps, so used to WCS with 3, so 2 laps, yeah. So we want obviously the pressure to be at our target hot pressure by basically the end of our out lap. Yeah, we can't afford to wait 5 laps for them to get up to our target pressure. So what I'm guessing we'll just try here, we'll just go 1 click up on the pressures. Pay attention to what your ride heights were before you did any changes as well.
Pay attention.
So just make a note of what they are, because obviously as soon as you stiffen up as soon as you put more pressure in there, it's going to change the ride height. So we'll do that, and then we're going to drop the fuel out of it. Am I on the right camera here as well?
Well, look. Which one do you want to be on?
Just so they can see the middle screen.
Yeah, it looks like it's fine.
Yeah. So okay, so we drop the pressure, drop the fuel out of the car, and again that's affected the ride height. So we need to get back down to where we were, which was about 86 on the back. Like I say, it's not going to be exact because I didn't pay attention. The front was just as low as it could get, which it still is. Okay, so the very, very basics that you obviously do for that is, like I say, is get the pressures to the point. I'll do a quick run here. Now you're not worried too much about wear rates over a 1 or 2 lap run. So what I would suggest to do as well is, for a Q set, is have a play with the cambers in the Q as well. Go a little bit wild with pumping up the cambers a bit, because you can abuse the tyres over a two lap run, no problem. And
it's very key to maintain that balance, though.
Absolutely, yeah. You still want the balance, because we've taken a load of fuel out of the car. You know, we've changed the tyre pressures, although they're going to be the same hot pressures at the end. Right now, the balance should feel the same, but I would dare say that with the fuel out, it's going to be a bit different. What we can't see on this inside the garage actually is the nose weight. That gives us an idea if there'd be a shift in the balance.
Yeah.
Some cars have the ability to show us what the nose weight is, but with all that extra fuel taken out, you know, some cars are going to have it sort of more mid position for their tank. Some are going to be at the back and all sorts of stuff, you know. So like the rough's completely different to, you know, like the McLaren or something like that. So
yeah.
So it's going to affect the balance in a way. So what you just need to really do is get the very basics done with the fuel out, the ride heights readjusted, work out over a run what your pressure is going to be over a 2 lap run to get them all even, because the amount of clicks that I've got here might be too much now. I might need to make them a bit closer. And then
have you changed the ride height?
I've changed them back to what they were. Yep. All right. So, or close enough to it. You can't get it exact with the car because the jumps are quite large in this.
Yeah.
And we're showing like odd cambers again, but as we know, that's all because of the tyre pressures. So, but yeah, so they're all over the place at the moment. But we'll just do a quick little run with the low fuel. But like I say, the next thing I'd really do is see what the balance is, fix the balance, because if you've got some unstable corners now based on the fact that there's low fuel, there's a shift in the balance, then you just need to fix that back with your setup. Yeah, and then what you can do is start ramping on some camber and things like that as well. So you've got a good baseline, you know what you want the car to feel like and how you want the balance to be. So once you take the fuel out, you just got to make it feel exactly the same. So let's just do a lap. And we'll just see what the tyre pressures are, for example. So I'm going to do a steady out lap. I'm not going to abuse the tyres on the way out or anything like that, because you know, you don't want to overheat them or anything like that. As we talked about earlier, a cooler tyre is better than a hot one. So why overheat them on the way out? Certainly no wheel spin or lockups or slides or anything like that. And I've seen some people in qualifying sessions like crawl around, you know, to keep the temperatures as low as possible. And the sad truth of things, it does help. You know, not a great deal, but it does help a bit. So I know certainly on the Indy 500, like, you know, if we could crawl around for a lap and then do 2 like hot ones or something like that, it would have made quite a difference to the qualifying pace. Just come back out the car. It's the same, you know, on your out lap as well. Heavy braking, so it's going to cause a bit of extra heat. Get yourself ready for a lap. Of course, this is where we want the pressures to be right. So we'll have a look at that in the garage. You could obviously check that in Motec as well. This is where I fail and don't go faster with a light car. Look like an absolute idiot.
We've all done it.
Okay. Loads of traction control coming out there.
Got about 2 laps of fuel.
What do you do with the tyre pressures for qualifying? Have you changed them at all? Or?
Well, I'm just trying to get to my, you know, in the first part of our setup building, we tried to find a hot tyre pressure that was comfortable to us. Yeah, so
in your range.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm basically just trying to get that same hot pressure over a 2-lap run and even again. So let's just say we were basically running at 185. So what I've had now is, just before I went out, I put the pressures all up one click, all round.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's not enough. As you can see, I'm only 182, 181, 180, 179.
Yeah.
So, and we've got there's like 3 kPa difference there at the end of the run. So, it's
Dave was saying he always goes flat out on his out lap so he can get a good reference on his delta time.
Yeah, again,
So it can work for some people, I
yeah,
guess.
that can help as well. So
I know in some cars, like say, I know the Kia especially, you have to have a slow out lap because, you know, otherwise you just lose the grip of the tyre all there on that first lap. Yeah, sometimes you can get a better second lap in, but it's more about the gradual. It's the thermal degradation, isn't it, Alex, as well, really? And
yeah,
it's just
exactly.
the heat of the tyre that really kills it in the Kia. So if your first lap is slow, so if your out lap is slow, your first lap might not necessarily be the fastest lap you do, but having done the slow out lap, for me, it just keeps the tyre in a better temperature range for longer. I don't know if that's what you think as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
not so much.
we don't get an awful lot of time, which is unfortunate for Q. You know, maybe if you get into the session really quickly, maybe do a scout lap at full speed, but don't cross the start-finish line. So you've got a couple of really good sectors, yeah, but not your first and last sector. You know, that might be a sort of a better way of doing it, and then you can take it easy on the way out, and you have got a little feel of what the car's doing.
So speaking of getting a feel of what the car's doing, and what do you make of this now that you've made all these adjustments?
Well, the balance doesn't feel too dissimilar at all. Of course, you know, I haven't done a lot of laps to really sort of fine-tune again. So I would do a little basic. I would almost go through the same exercise that I did for the race setup again with the Q set, just to get it absolutely right. But yeah, and at the minute, all I'm really doing is starting with the pressures, because the pressures were wrong.
I'll say I've noticed it's giving you a little bit of trouble so
That's
far.
a tough old corner, that one, no matter what you do.
So, yeah, well, that time actually you seemed to hit it quite well.
Actually, I
Just got
just
a bit
turned
of
in too early on the way in. That was my thing. So.
How much faster in qualifying do
I think you should be looking at about a second.
you got here?
I would think.
And obviously, in some cars that is more than in others. The McLaren is the MP4, they're 30.
Okay, so we did have what, a 19.0 there, and that definitely felt
Pretty good.
better. See what the tyres are doing around there. There we go. Pretty close. Maybe the left rear might be a bit too high. You got to have a play. You want to get them as close as possible. It might not be possible to get them spot on a 1 lap run. So that might
have a good chicane that time as
It
well.
is 2 laps that we've got to do after all. So that might, as a 1 click down on the left rear, might actually mean that they're spot on. So
yeah.
Again, it's try get that right, and then do your 2 lap runs in testing, and then start to play with again the set if it needs anything. Try going aggressive with cambers, just for your Q,
Yes.
and then just have a play, just go through like you've done, because you have changed the balance of the car with the fuel out. So you might just need a little bit. A little click here and a little click there, going through some of the settings just might give you that, extra tenth of a second that you're looking for in Q. But you definitely need to do the same process, but the minimum things that you must do, is go through and get those pressures right for a 2 lap run, because you've obviously got them ready for a Q set, and then readjust your ride heights back to the same after you've taken the fuel out.
Yeah.
Any final questions? I think we're drawing to an end. I know we
just
targeted 2 hours for this, and here we are at 3. So
3 hours, yeah. But that's what. But the good thing about that is we've managed to get some really good in-depth stuff for each section, because I know the danger of it sometimes is that you don't cover everything enough, and able to at least get a couple of runs out on every section to. Somebody says, can you show the tyre pressures in full screen?
Yeah, I just did, actually.
Aha.
It should be coming up in a second.
See what your temperatures are as well. I'll be quite interested to see that after qualifying. But
yeah, they're actually even.
Yeah, I want
Not on the back.
I want to see if there's final. We've got Philip says very good format. Well, thank you very much for that.
Cheers, Phil.
Let's say as long as we make people happy. It's all good.
Thanks for everyone who stuck with us as well.
Yeah, there was a gentleman earlier on who said that Apex is helping me up my game a lot from the mid pack to the top 5 hunt. Thank you. So
yeah, good news.
Yeah,
Always good to hear.
That's what we're here for, isn't it? Really? Because the thing is, as well, is it's all right saying go into iRacing and because the thing is, look, the only reason if I'd have gone onto iRacing on my own, without you and without a few of the other guys, this was back in 2011. To bore everyone senseless with this before we finish, is I would have really, really struggled because I had absolutely no idea about how to set up a car at all.
Well, neither did I.
I mean, I knew the very, very basics, and to be honest, I haven't really progressed from that, but a great deal. But these sessions are definitely helping me as well. So if it helps everybody at home, then that's great, and that's what we want to see. We're not just. We want to be pushing the boundaries of all the aspects of sim racing, not just the broadcasting, but we have Apex Racing UK, where we're striving to get the best drivers in the world. Trying to make the best drivers in the world in the World Championship. We've got Apex Racing TV, of course. We're on TV internationally. Apex Racing Academy, which is obviously this and all the people included in it. And yeah, we've got other things in the pipeline as well. So it's great. Course Racer says, I don't understand the toe in on the front with the caster. I don't know. Does that make any sense to you? That?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't changed the toe in. Again, I think generally people tend to go for sort of like a negative toe in. I haven't sort of tweaked it, but yeah, I'm one that will go for as close to sort of 0 on there for tire life more than anything else. And as I sort of explained earlier, really the caster is just all about. For me, it's all about like that personal feel. It's crept up just during the course of this run, but I sort of explained the caster earlier on. So this is not a gospel setup to use or anything like this. I was just clicking and explaining different things throughout it. So there's probably a lot of stuff in here that wouldn't necessarily use if you want a bit more of a stable set. Go and grab the Academy one that's that's shared for free on the forum.
I don't know if you did explain this earlier on, but why do you not put any positive toe in on the front?
Well,
in general.
Yeah. So the negative is usually what you would go to for the front end just to help the car turn.
Sorry, why not negative toe in? Sorry, I think that's what it means. Sorry,
okay. Yeah, sure.
No, it's why not dash toe in. Sorry, that's my bad.
Right. Yeah. So that's normally what you would go for. Just it helps the car turn in. But I'm a firm believer that the more toe in you have, actually, you just put a little bit more heat through the tires. And I do believe it actually says something about like that as well. Yeah, less front toe out, yeah, equals less temperature build up. Okay, so basically on a 0, you kind of get as you're keeping the temperatures down as low as possible, and as we sort of spoke about earlier on, the least amount of temp you can get in the tyres, the more grip they give you at the moment, just with the way the tyre model works. So that would definitely be something I would suggest trying for the Q set, though.
Alright.
Yeah, obviously this was built from the race set, so but yeah, something to do there. And again, it's the same reason why I don't run positive on the back. I run as close to 0. It's just all about the heat, and over the long run, it just gives you actually a couple of tenths of a second at the end of the stint, just because you've kept the temperatures down. So
sometimes that's all you need, isn't it?
Yeah, it makes a massive difference in the IndyCar. That was really where I noticed that. When you're pounding laps on the IndyCar around some of the ovals and stuff like that, and you start having little finite adjustments of toe in and things like that, it makes quite a difference, and you can see it massively in the Motec data, and you can see it on the long run lap time pace as well. So, and I've kind of just transitioned that over to row racing, and it just sort of stuck. So,
yeah.
I'm sure once, as we said at the start, once we get this next version of the tyre model where it's a little bit less sensitive on the heat, then we'll be running back. I always used to run like -2 on like some of the cars on.
Okay, yeah.
Really to get the car turned in. So, but just on the current tyre model, I'm not. But yeah, a good one to use for Q. And like I say, the caster's just built up that over the course of this little setup video, but I'm normally around about 10.3 or something like that.
Well, I think, mate, that is all just about it. 3 hours and 3 hours and about 5 minutes, I think.
Awesome stuff. Right, well, thanks everybody for tuning in. We will we'll cut this video up into the different sections as well. We'll keep it together as if you wanted to watch the whole thing, but I appreciate an hour, 10 minutes is probably not going to get watched too often, so I'll break it down into each section to try and make it easy for you to digest. But yeah, thank you for everybody who asked all the question, stuck with us the whole way through. I don't know if there is anyone. Dave, you still here?
I think he was. So.
Oh, jeez, fair play. So, is anyone here to mock us, really, wasn't he? No. So, but no, appreciate him watching. But yeah, no, thank you, mate. as always, for helping me with this. So
Hey, mate, it's always a pleasure.
I think we've got we're going to do some more of these in the future as well, and maybe next season we're going to do the Formula Renault. We've already done it in the McLaren, so yeah, maybe we'll do maybe when that Ferrari comes out, we'll get up to speed and we'll do it in the Ferrari. Try and do that as quickly as possible as well for the guys. So, all right, cool. Have a good evening, everyone, and yeah, we'll catch up with you soon. Thanks a lot for watching.